this one.
Whoa. Huh.
Yeah.
That's gnarly.
Yeah. What do you do with this? It's like a genie, Bob.
Yeah, it does look like a genie.
Very much. Rub it and see what you kill this year.
Hey, now, this is a joke.
Don't let your wife catch you rubbing that antler so much. Jeez.
Never mind.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, it's almost food plot season, Jared, and Deer Grow is one of those products that has really changed the way that we plant food plots and the success we've seen from them.
No doubt. I've been, trying to plant food plots my entire whitetail hunting career, which is a little shorter than yours. But the minute that I started, or that I realized that I could get Deer Grow back into some of these remote plots where I couldn't get lime or fertilizer, especially in the 50-pound bag, format. Mm-hmm. So everything was changed. I could get into these spots moving forward with a backpack sprayer, and that's since escalated to these 40 or 60 gallon sprayers, and we're doing upwards of 5 to 10 acre food plots just with Deer Grow and having phenomenal success.
Yeah, and with the price of fertilizer, lime, diesel, everything this year, what better way to get in there and grow a successful food plot at about a third of the cost? Check out Deer Grow at deergrow.com. And we're back.
Hey.
HUNTR Podcast. 76, Alex? Does that sound right?
It does sound right.
Episode 76. Do the math. Carry the 1. 24 away from 100. See that?
Yeah, so it is good math. Dude, I've really struggled to count. In fact, I've resorted just to one hand because you know how your brain works in increments of like 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, my left hand doesn't work that way.
I was wondering, has any of the people you met from like listing and buying, have they said anything about your finger?
Oh, I bring it up all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great conversation piece.
Yeah. Hey, check this out.
Yeah. Oh, that little old lady I met with yesterday, she was all about, oh my, because she just wanted to talk about,
Mm-hmm. She fed you Cokes.
Yeah, Coca-Cola. She wouldn't let me leave without
You need to be hydrated.
Can I get you a cold pop?
Yeah, you need to be hydrated, Jared.
I don't think anybody's visited her house in several years.
Yeah. Oh, it's nice to pay a visit to her.
Yeah, spent about an hour with her.
Hopefully the next one is, here, sign this contract.
Get signed.
Yeah, for ourselves.
Yeah.
But we sold it.
We sold it.
Yeah. And it's gone.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, it is May 26th.
Unreal, dude.
Yep, Memorial Day, this upcoming Monday. If you're listening to this, Memorial Day was yesterday.
What?
Yeah.
It was?
No. If you're listening to this,
oh,
it was.
I was like, holy crap. How did I miss that?
What? No, it's Tuesday. You're listening to this Monday. It's really Thursday, the 26th. So
that's funny.
Yeah, it was cool, man. I walked, I posted it on Instagram. I drove up to the property behind the house and checked out that food plot. And that clover is cranking right now.
Yeah.
We've had the right conditions for it. A lot of rain, a lot of warmth. It's going. It's growing.
Nice. How big is that going to end up?
That'll be an additional acre onto about the quarter acre I had. So I'll have an acre and a quarter there.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's a huge add-on. A lot of food added in.
Yeah, and you have a box blind on it already, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a muddy. I'll probably reposition that once I start seeing how deer are going to be using that plot in August, September.
Mm-hmm.
I'll reposition that box blind a little bit. Probably I've got one ladder stand on that plot, but I might end up moving it.
Yeah. Can you cover most of that, like with a bow? Is it like long and narrow, or is it like what kind of?
Long and narrow. Yep, it's more rectangle, and it kind of does like a dog leg left or whatever. So if I sit at the corner point, you couldn't shoot it all with a bow, but those deer are going to kind of funnel back and forth through there. There's been a lot of deer in there. In fact, I had a big strutter and a bunch of hens in it the other day.
Nice. Get a little mineral block out there?
I haven't yet. That's what I'm going to go and get some mineral. We're going to be in Kentucky probably this weekend, and I'm going to do the same thing. Get some mineral out. I might have to spray. I sprayed that plot. How long do you usually wait for your glide to kill your food plot? 2 weeks? So I'm approaching 2 weeks. It's definitely working, but it's still pretty thick. I don't know if I'm
How much glide are you putting on it?
I put a gallon on 2 acres. Is that too much?
Yeah.
Not
and
enough?
It's not torched?
No. It was like super. That's one of those spots that was like 3 to 4 foot tall grass.
Yeah, usually 3 quarts to the acre is excessive, and that'll torch it.
Mm-hmm. How many quarts are in a gallon?
4.
4 quarts to a gallon?
So you put
2. per acre. So maybe I undered it a little bit.
You said you put 2 gallons.
No, 1 gallon for 2 acres.
Oh, okay. So you're on the lighter side.
Yeah.
But that's enough. Two would be kind of standard application.
Okay.
Yeah, give it 2 to 3 weeks and it'll be torched.
All right. Well, I was going to be down there this weekend, so I don't know if I'm going to torch it again or not.
It's up to you, but
We'll
you
see.
should be okay.
And then I'm working on the Ohio ones.
Unless it rained, like really soon after. I have had that happen.
No, I mean, a couple days, but I mean, it should have been rain fast by then.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm trying to get the neighbor to cut hay off of my Ohio place, so it'll make it a heck of a lot easier for me to spray it and work it. And like, we're just off sync on schedules right now.
Yeah.
And so at some point I'm just going to have to go and torch it probably next week if she's not cutting it.
Okay.
So,
dude, I'm getting excited about, I guess it's been a few years in the making, but this early successional type of project I'm talking about. The first step is just mowing. So I'm stoked to get with my dad, and I'm kind of going to just draw a map for him. And what's cool is this is my home farm in Ohio.
Yep.
One of those, the whole property consists of what at one time was 2 or 3 different properties, and one of those is fairly unfarmable. It's just it's kind of it's got a lot of terrain. It's usable though for this project, and so there's a lot of like knobs. Yep. It's basically there's one field in particular that I can think of. It's probably like 40 acres in total. But it's got a bunch of drainages kind of running down throughout it. And the deer there is no rhyme or reason to how they really use this thing. And so I'm going to turn all of those like knobs into
old field growth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll kind of leave the low points clear. And so by the
end,
we should have kind of a really cool network of drainages and stuff to be able to hunt. And
that'd be cool.
So that'll keep Dad busy.
It's a lot of I mean, it takes time, but that's a lot of cover that will add to a property that, frankly, that is the limiting factor.
Yeah, huge.
So, be interesting. So, anyways, we have a guest today. The old stretch, Erich Long from Drumming Log Wildlife. And Eric has been on before with Cody. I think we talked a lot about hunter recruitment and new hunters and stuff. But, I know Eric's been on a bunch of different properties recently. In fact, I caught him yesterday. I think he was going out and planting beans or something. But I figured we'd pull Stretch in and talk a little bit about, overall management here in the late spring and summer, and just, different activities that kind of prep us for, everything we want to do in the fall.
May have seen him from the HUNTR Project, which seems like they've been doing a lot.
Yeah, him and Cody are doing a lot. If you're listening to this Tuesday, last Thursday, so in essence for us today, Eric and Cody are dropping what seems like a pretty big deal project today. So maybe we'll get Eric to talk about it, since it's really people not hearing this until after it releases.
Cool.
So I'm bring him in, Alex. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Dude, where would we be without our Hoyt bows?
Probably shooting crossbows.
or a Matthews, yeah.
One and the same.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we love being Hoyt guys because you stand out. When you're in this room full of other people that shoot these other types of bows, I feel like the Hoyt guys just stick out.
Dude, it's just a legit bow. I mean, especially that carbon riser, man. I mean, I know that they've got several other aluminum lines as well, but for me, I'm shooting that RX5 in the carbon model. They've since come out with the RX7, and I can't tell you how much I love being a Hoyt guy amongst a sea full of Matthews guys. So we're out there, I think, proving them wrong, shooting 80 pounds and, killing stuff.
Hey, man, if you want to get serious, get Hoyt. Hey, we gotcha?
Hey, yes.
There he is.
Hi, guys.
Mr. Erich Long. Well, listen, man, I wasn't putting too much pressure, and I already confused Jared once with like what day it was when we're actually putting this podcast out.
He's talking in terms of when this is gonna. He's like, it was Memorial Day yesterday. I'm like, it was.
You just got to play it out. But so today is Thursday, the 26th. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you and Cody and the HUNTR Project have something dropping today.
In theory.
Scheduled to release.
Scheduled. Thank you, Jared. Yeah, it's probably today, more than likely, maybe the following day. Cody is knee deep in editing right now. He just got back from Florida and Mexico, and then I went down there to do a bunch of filming, and he's just slamming some films out. So yeah, so hopefully
Fantastic.
if he does his job like we pay him nothing to do, he will get it done.
Have you guys been keeping up with this Amber Heard?
I haven't been like super kept up with it, but I'm at least paying attention to it.
Have you seen these clips where they're talking about she got $7 million in the divorce settlement, and she claimed that she donated it to a few different organizations and charities, and she hasn't really donate, and so they are cornering her during the trial on this, and she keeps saying she pledged it. She's like, yeah, I pledged $7 million, and they're like, but did you donate it? She's like, yes, I pledged it. And ultimately has come out she hasn't donated it.
Yeah.
So in regards to your project dropping, we're pledging that it will drop.
We're pledging that. Listen, nobody's going to hear this podcast until Tuesday the 31st. So by now, if you're listening to this, I would say there's an 80% chance it's dropped.
If Cody's any more reliable than Amber, we should be in good shape.
Yeah, it's funny. My boss for the state, he always he keeps up on that trial, and he's like, "Did you watch it? Did you see this?" I mean, he's like obsessed with what's going on.
Oh yeah,
it's
it's fine. Dude, there's some people that are real into that. I was meeting with a landowner yesterday. She's an older lady. Sounds like she watches a lot of TV. And we got to chat in American Idol, and she's all like,
in
Noah.
She said, "Have you been watching?" Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, she's all into that stuff, huh? That's so funny, man. Isn't that crazy? Well, I guess Eric, can you by now? I have confidence in Cody that it is dropped, but tell us a little bit about like what it is. What is dropping?
Well, we have this wildlife, Our Way of Life series that we started back, I think it was in March. And it's just a different type of wildlife management, how-to videos. Number one, a lot of the videos out there that teach, air quote, wildlife management or deer management, it's like, I don't know, they take themselves a little too serious,
Sure. You don't say.
So,
cereal.
No. So we're pretty lighthearted and, having a bunch of fun and just, we don't go into in depth too much of stuff. We just try to just cruise the basics and just try to keep people, their minds open to, hey, if you do this else happens.
Yeah.
And that's what people sometimes forget. Like, it might have not have been a success for one thing, but it was a home run for other species.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're trying to cover, and we do a little fun spoof type stuff, and we actually probably should just be doing that because those come natural, other than the other wildlife management videos. So
I think that one of the things that you kind of look at overall is that, and it's with any management activity. I mean, I know, most people think, quote, food plots as management, but let's stick on the habitat side, especially if we're talking about, timber stand improvement or cuts or anything like that. My main goal, if I go in and do a series of cuts like I did on my Pennsylvania property, was ultimately to create more, bedding and thick cover for deer. But as kind of a sidebar to that, my goal is hopefully to have better turkey nesting. You and I have already had this discussion, but I'm a huge rough grouse fan, and like even though it's dwindling in my area, there's still remnant pockets of them. And so, my measure of success, mainly because like I don't necessarily know if deer are going to be utilizing the property, is if I can walk through some of these areas I did cuts in the next 2 years and flush a grouse, then I'm like, boom, success. Right, because I haven't been able to do that in the last 3 years. It was the first year I bought the property, I jumped some grouse, and since then I haven't seen any.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up grouse because one of the videos that we did, Cody has a little pocket of grouse on his place in Virginia, and there is a section of property that they hang out in, and it's in dire need of some TLC.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because his decision, what we came up with, and then him and his dad and brother were the final decision makers on it. But It's just simply by changing the title. Instead of deer management, they went grouse management, and it was almost the same thing, other than just little tiny items.
Sure.
But it was just funny how it was just switching the title of it gave you a whole new perspective, because whatever they did, and we will be dropping that video here for too long, it was deer management.
Yeah,
really, the deer are going to be benefiting from it. We did a drum and log. We placed a drum and log. We're going to be teaching people how to do that. If you do have a pocket, we're going to be just different stuff. But
that's cool. Well, and I think that's the big.
What is that? That's a drumming log.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of I know that's what your company's name is.
No,
I've never heard.
I mean, you've heard of grouse drum before, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. They're on a drumming log for mating to show off to the females.
Oh, and do they have like a preference of a certain type of a log?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yep. Oh, I've never heard.
Yeah, it's got to have a lot of factors going into it. I sent you, Jeremy.
Yeah, right? You sent me that one that it was freaking awesome.
Yeah, Jared, it was pretty cool because opening day of turkey season, instead of going out and chasing a ghost, I decided to go chase another ghost, which is, grouse. I have a grouse on this one piece of property, and I set up a blind on a drum and log that last year I put the deer camera on it because I heard grouse in the area, and there was a couple logs that looked like a drum and log, and there was some scat on it. So I set the deer camera up. And then this year I decided, with the influence of Cody and others, it's like I got to pick up the camera more and help Cody out. So I set up the blind about, less than 10 yards away from the log, and the damn thing actually showed up, jumped on the log, and I got like 2.5 hours of footage of this thing just drumming around, drumming away. And it was incredible. It was incredible. But yeah, there's a certain, things that make up a drum and log. They need a lot of horizontal cover above them. For avian predators and stuff. Yeah, it's just not just a log,
Okay.
There's certain things, but it's very simple, very simplistic.
Certain type of tree. Is it a dead tree, living tree in most cases, or?
Not necessarily. Yeah, it's going to be dead, eventually. But yeah, no, just a good log,
good horizontal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, typically, what I've seen, and mainly because
I've ever seen one of these.
Where I'm finding them are in, old clear cuts, or let's say very hard selective cuts, that anything 15 and up we're cutting type of thing. And then typically what you have is you've got, part of a trunk that essentially has laid down from those cuts and now, begins to kind of rot away or whatever, decompose there. And those are the ones that typically that horizontal cover is growing up and then above them because it's got so much sunlight. And then you've got that smooth kind of like log just laying in there in the right position. And just like if you would looking for deer or where a turkey roost in, or even if you're talking about buzzards, like you go and look and you see scat all underneath where these things are roosting, same thing except you're looking for it on a log.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Oh no, it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But it's crazy. I mean, because again, and maybe date Eric and myself, like, man, when I grew up, one of the things that if I wasn't deer hunting in the fall, I was grouse hunting, and I mean, we would flush 20, 25 birds per trip. Mm-hmm. It was nothing to get at least a couple, or we've shot a hell of a lot. Let's put it that way, and if sometimes it hit, and even when I was at Penn State, I would do, grouse flush counts and stuff like that. And, now it's like, if I hear one, it's like, whoa. I feel like we've almost reverted back to like when in the 60s and stuff, Grandpa would find a deer track and be like, this is a big deal in the area. Like, we don't see these very often, and that's kind of where I am for grouse now. Cause it's like, if I hear one, like I'll tell the boys, I'm like, hey, you hear that? Like, that's a grouse. And it's like, it's not like it's a common thing that we have to point out.
Yeah. And what's really, it's sad, but it's, I guess this is how the times are, our fathers, grandpas,
Mm-hmm.
they could say, yeah, we used to quail hunt. We used to pheasant hunt. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy and we can say we used to grouse hunt.
Yeah.
Jared and that generation is going to be saying, yeah, we used to turkey hunt.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just constantly.
There's just, yeah.
And I mean,
once it stopped.
What do you think, Eric, as a professional in the field, you kind of hear all types of reasons, whether it's habitat, avian diseases, whether it's, the plethora of them, bird flu, whatever. I mean, what are your thoughts around, let's even just focus on the grouse to start, in terms of that declining population?
Yeah, grouse, you could really pinpoint it to, I think, and this is just my opinion, obviously, but it would be habitat.
Mm-hmm.
You can't deny that.
Sure.
Our woods are getting more mature, the anti-logging sentiment, no one likes to cut their trees. Even, land managers are having a hard time to, convincing a client to cut their forest,
Yep.
But yeah, it would be habitat. Then, you got West Nile.
Well, and I mean, that's what I was going to say. Obviously you're involved in a state agency, and here in Pennsylvania, that seems to be the common culprit that continues to come back, from our department, which is, West Nile. And agree, I think that there is a big factor in that. But I think to your number one, habitat is huge, because where I am finding these birds is in the right habitat.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because these things they're not a migratory bird.
Yeah.
They don't fly around looking for early successional type of habitat.
Right.
And it's frustrating. And that's why, RGS, Woodcock Society does a phenomenal job getting the information out there. But RGS, and it's not necessarily against them personally, but it's just like we need to start doing a better job getting
100%.
Information out there to those that do have pockets of grouse. We need to grab a hold of those people, because those people are the ones that are going to ultimately be the demise of the rough grouse, or they're going to be the ones that can be the headline story of saving the species.
Yep.
So it's just like we need to start doing a better job. Organizations, think about it. Whitetail deer, the most hunted species in North America, wouldn't you say? I mean,
100%.
Yeah, or United States. There's only really one organization that represents that species.
Yep.
Correctly. And that'd be what? NDA.
Mm-hmm.
You have Whitetails Unlimited, but I don't know what they really do.
It's more of a hunt club party.
Yeah. And that wasn't a slide to them.
Yeah, no.
I just don't know what you do. But then like you have a rough grouse, it's going to be the dodo. There's only one organization out there that represents this species, and you're counting on leadership to lead people to either be successful or not. Waterfowl, you have you got DU, but you got Delta waterfowl, California waterfowl. 100%. You got competition. Competition.
Somebody setting the bar.
Drives. Yeah. It's like, and why are we not working together? If that's the case, not to go on a tangent, it's like, why isn't NDA working with NDA? Because it benefits each other.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, Woodcock Society, they work with Pheasants Forever, Whitetails Unlimited. They are just whatever needs to be done. Let's get it done. And that's what's, one person said, and I'm going to butcher this. The reason why wildlife will, be gone is that no one else will allow the other person to take credit for it.
Yeah.
And think about that statement. I mean, that came from one of the leading conservationists in the whole world. Is that somebody, we won't allow each other to take credit. And it's just,
it's in the same,
need to stop.
It's in the same mindset of, people saying my deer, my buck, it's a public resource at the end of the day, unless that deer's in a high fence, it's a public resource. Like, yes, you take it personal and you want to provide for quote unquote your deer, but ultimately it's a public resource, and so your efforts on that deer's life are just as much as your neighbors and the neighbor over here and the neighbor over there. It's a weird thing, because I mean the rough grouse, and I mean, Jared, I know you said, what was it, this week you jumped a pheasant?
It was a pheasant. Yeah.
Yep. And then
didn't scare me bad enough to be a grouse.
Well, and then when I was in, I
didn't see it, but I'm fairly confident it was a pheasant.
I was up by the airport, and I was talking with a landowner, and we're in kind of pasture ground, but there was a bunch of early successional. There was a bunch of autumn olive, which was like the go-to for a lot of these strip reclamation projects. And I heard a pheasant cackle. And I looked at her and I was like, do you have pheasant out here? And she's like, every once in a while. And damned if we didn't take like 3 more steps. I'm like, yep, there he is, walking right in front of me. And it's like, I have now seen as many ringnecks in the spring, which those things have a very short lifespan, as I have heard rough grouse in the spring. And that's a sad statistic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, go back to the original thing. It is habitat. But the West Nile, bad logging practices, BMPs. I know up in Northeast Ohio, you still have the Amish community, and they're starting to get better. But the Amish community still uses horses, so that leaves ruts. Even the loggers, leaving ruts, that you can step in and come up thigh high. Well, that creates stagnant water. What's attractant to stagnant water?
Mosquitoes,
mosquito larvae, and everything else. And there is no topography up there where different elevations will. Like in Appalachia, they found out that a certain elevation, the rough grouse are doing a lot better because the West Nile, the mosquitoes are not up that high. So they're going to start concentrating on that elevation, whatever that is, to do. That's where you'll start doing your management practices. But yeah, bad BMPs, management practices, that. And now we're the proud new owner of avian flu. Turkeys, exactly. Turkeys, eagles are dropping like flies. So we got that going for us, So
really?
Yeah, I mean, it's like each year we get a new present, right?
Eric, can you kind of educate, especially me, like on the West Nile and the avian bird flu, like which species those are affecting? And
well, the avian bird flu is mostly, gets started from waterfowl. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, and hopefully I said that right. But yeah, it stems from mostly waterfowl, and then distributes from there.
Okay.
West Nile. I know when it first came out, West Nile.
And Eric, that avian will affect like turkeys and grouse and pheasant,
eagles.
Yeah, and how bad? Yeah, and how bad we don't know yet. Because there has been just a handful of turkeys that have been tested. Some come back saying no, some been saying yes.
Okay.
But yeah, just certain species, and I don't know exactly which one gets the free pass or not. But
and is it fatal? Fatal like a majority of the time, or? Yeah,
the eagles that do come into like the rehabilitators, they most of them have been dying.
Well, they check themselves in, or
voluntarily.
Yeah, that's right.
Or they get through it.
What is it?
Yeah. Some get the coin. Yeah, but no, it's but yeah, the West Nile, I know back when it started, I forget what, mid 2000s or something like that. I forget when it was. I mean, the avian predators took a hit. The owls.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, the great horned owls.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they took a major hit, you know. And unfortunately, management people understand what I mean by this is that it was unfortunate that species and whatever species we're trying to manage for, if the avian predators got hit, I wish the grouse didn't.
Right. It would have been an explosion.
So that way they could at least kind of jump, but that's not how it works.
Well, and I think what's interesting about it is, we're looking at this, and again, no doubt that West Nile and now avian flu have an effect on the populations, but just like anything in wildlife, whether you're talking about deer, rabbit, doesn't matter. It's a multitude of factors. In the case of grouse and I think now turkeys. I mean, man, I knock on wood.
What is the deal with turkeys? Like I hear a lot of people.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Saying that turkeys are declining
in our area. I feel like it's exploding. Like I mean, there's birds all over the place. And I had one of the best seasons that I've ever had in my life. I look at my friends in Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, and they're saying that they're at all-time lows, for turkey and populations. And it's an interesting thing when you start to hear that. And again, no knock to those guys, but my first reaction to them is, well, is it your habitat? Because like if I think about the habitat of an Illinois, right? Very fragmented tree rows, lots of big ag in most of that state. That's a lot different than what my turkey hunting woods look like.
No, it's kind of a bizarre. So for me, who's thinking about deer a majority of the time, like they're so adaptable that like it just doesn't. Tell me I'm wrong. Seem like if there's never a habitat issue. Like they're just going to move to the next property. There's always enough habitat. We always have too many deer. The only thing that we need it seems like, is an organization that will limit the way that we hunt them. That's the only thing that can really have, like, it's more of a...
Well, and I think we're seeing that, in the case of deer, although people don't think about it, like deer are still a borderline migratory species, especially when we talk about winter ranges versus summer and fall ranges. Like these deer are picking up. I mean, if we go into Michigan and northern Minnesota and Wisconsin, I mean, they're truly winter ranges versus what they then move out to. I think you and I kind of experienced that in mule deer in the Badlands.
You think that's a major difference, is that they're 100%. Migratory species versus not?
Where these deer or these turkeys and these grouse and stuff are not.
Well, dude, that's when we're talking about these grouse. Every time I hear about them, I'm like, these birds are freaking weak. Like, what do you mean there's not enough habitat?
They don't move. They are in an area and they don't move. And keep in mind, I think that the nest predation based on weather and actual, predators has a much greater impact on the reproduction of a ground nesting bird species than it does on a deer species.
Yeah.
Even though we had Kill go on, 4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And he's basically saying, listen, you can kill as many coyotes as you want. It ain't going to change anything. Like these fawns are still going to die. The coyotes are still going to move in and they're still going to kill them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one of the more impressive things he said was they tracked a coyote that ran, or maybe it was Lashley that told us that they tracked a coyote for...
It started on the border.
Miles?
No, it started on the border of North Carolina, South Carolina.
And went up to D.C., right?
Went up to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, like in a matter of a few days.
Yeah, those road coyotes, they're not the homebodies. Those road coyotes, they'll travel 50 miles in a day plus. Wow. But the turkey thing, let's go back to the grouse real quick. You're talking about, being weak. Mm-hmm. That says a lot about how bad the situation is, because grouse eat over 300 species of food.
Yeah,
and they're still dying because of habitat. That says a lot that we are not doing. They are so adaptable that we're still failing them. And go back to the turkeys, because I hope we talk a lot about this actually, because there is so much to talk about. But the wild turkeys, everyone does say, it's habitat, organizations say it's habitat, and it's like, when I was trapping turkeys, when we first started relocating turkeys in the state of Ohio, you needed X amount of block, 1,000 to almost 10,000 acres, and they could only go in there. They were so adaptable that we were trapping, turkeys in urban downtown behind somebody's house. We're inside a house setting off the detonator, drinking coffee, and have to use plywood so the explosion, doesn't ruin siding. I mean, they are so adaptable. Mm-hmm. But the one thing with the turkeys, there is so much going against them that it's not necessarily one thing. It is predation. It is habitat loss. It's not necessarily the habitat loss for the adults. It's poults.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They need certain habitat to get through, at least a certain stage, Eric, a bare ground with, it's like a forest, walking through a forest for us. But go ahead.
The predation factor seems a lot more believable to me for any of these bird species we're talking about, which I realize is tied into habitat as well. But doesn't it? It just seems it's hard for me to visualize it. Granted, I wasn't around 30, 40 years ago to know exactly what the grouse habitat looked like and what they require. But it's like, to look at a deer and a coyote, it almost seems like it doesn't matter what we do, they're going to find a way to survive. But with the grouse and potentially these turkeys now,
there's too many factors working against them.
Yeah, especially the predation.
And it's frustrating because I'm very passionate about grouse, maybe too passionate. I know my flaws. I get too emotionally involved in everything I do. But from the last time we talked, I was like trying to save the world. But no, it's like the turkeys it's real special to me, because I was, myself and another gentleman, we basically stalked, just him and I, and just a very few handful of others, but mostly him and I, stalked a whole district up in Northwest Ohio, so Ohio can have birds in all 88 counties. I mean, I was 3 a.m. at below zero, setting up a cannon net to trap these things, and then catching them, and almost over 12-hour days in the freezing cold, and you stick them, and they're just we killed 28,000 birds at one point. Now we're killing just above 10,000, and it's just when you ask the sportsman, like, hey, what do you think about knocking the bird thing down to 1 instead of 2, and people are all fired up. But it's like, guys and gals, we're going to the point where there's going to be anything, but the harvest is another thing. If that's neither here or there, but it's like it's there's some research that says corn is the problem. And let's travel down that rabbit hole for a second. I did a seminar not too long ago that it was for a QDM co-op, and this was a couple months ago, and people were asking about what about the turkeys? What about the turkeys? And I said, what if it was, on show of hands, how many people, if it was corn, the problem, the baiting, how many people would stop baiting? And no one rose their hand.
Mm-hmm.
The problem in what way?
Go ahead.
The problem in what way, Eric?
Well, they're thinking, and Jeremy, help me.
Yep.
Jared, help me pronounce this. The aflatoxins.
Yeah,
right?
aflatoxin.
Okay, so the corn is actually toxic to the birds.
In a certain quantity.
Yeah, in quantity. And people say, well, that's wrong because the corn out in the cornfields and stuff like that. You look at the crop of a turkey that doesn't have any bait situations other than a cornfield. Very little kernels.
Very little.
You go to a bait station and kill a bird. Yeah, it's loaded. And some are saying it's killing them. Some saying they're just making the hens sterile, male sterile. They're going through the whole process and stuff like that. But if that is the case, and bear with me when I say this, because I mean it, but I don't mean it, is that if that's the case, you could almost, state of Ohio, the co-ops that I deal with, the QDM philosophy then has its hands bloody because
100%.
People were sitting there going, hey, when QDM first started in Ohio, for example, people were all about habitat, food plots, chainsaw management, native vegetation. Then as they start seeing the results, people started getting more possessive, even though they were a part of a community of QDM. People are like bringing in it. So they started putting the feeders up and trying to keep the deer on the properties longer. Then everybody and a brother has a feeder, and you got that situation. And all these turkeys are just, and then go back to the predation. Every single person can say, hey, I got 20 coon. They're like Circus Delay. They're doing handstands on each other, getting up to the corn feeder. I mean, my hands are bloody in the sense of, the trapping aspect of it. Sure. I just don't have the time. It's not that I don't want to do it.
We saw the recent post, if anybody hasn't, from Casey Shootman.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Which Casey basically trapped basically the same area day after day after day after day. And they just kept coming. Coons, predators, possums, they just kept coming. Like
I texted them just before we went on. Yeah. And if anybody, just go to Casey Shootman or the Management Advantage and on their Facebook, the social media.
We need to have Casey on at some point.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh yeah, you definitely do. Yeah, for sure. I asked him, he said 104 on one field, one property, wow. 76 in a 40 acre, 22 in his grandparents' yard. I said, how many days? And he said 7 at the bottom, 7 days at the one field or one property, and 9 on the other. So we're looking at over 100 something days or species and less than 10 days.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That just shows you.
And then apply that to the landscape level. Again, you can't.
Oh my God.
Am I understanding that right? He got over 100 coyotes in one field.
No,
over like
coons.
Raccoons
and possums.
Still.
Yeah, your nest predators are like the culprits. Bobcat, coyotes, they do take those animals. We've heard stories, we've seen the videos, we've seen the deer cameras of bobcats hitting decoys. I think their latest research, and I don't know if it's updated or not, like one hen a week.
Yep.
That's sustainable. That's nothing. In some areas it spikes, in some areas
that's
lower.
Nature.
Yeah, that's nature. Thank you. But your nest predators, your raccoons, number one, skunk and possum.
Yeah.
But nest predators are the problem. And it goes back to the QDM. You have all these raccoons at these deer feeders and baiting situations, and no one's trapping them because they won't let coon dogs, run their property. Or the time of the trapping season, when they're done hunting, they could trap, but the seasons are closed.
Well, I mean,
so
do you think it would do anything though, Eric? I mean, our conversation with Kilgo, granted that was about coyotes, do you think that would apply to?
This is one thing that it's like cutting a tree, to release a white oak. It's the only thing that we can do. We can see in management that we can see quick results, because I know clients that doing what Casey Shootman's doing, and the nesting success just blows.
Yep.
It just blows. But if you have
blows in a good way, or in a bad
blows in a good way.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Gotcha.
Yeah, I have my own language too.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I'll translate.
But no, yeah, thank you. But yeah, but it's like if the habitat is subpar, it's like in deer, you have primary, secondary, and just crap. Yeah. And turkeys, even if the habitat situation is for real, if they're nesting in mediocre habitat, if the nesting predators are not there on the landscape like they are now, you will have that success. It's like, when the blizzard of 78 kill all the pheasants? Well, yeah, but why? Because of lack of habitat.
Yeah. Well, and I think unlike the coyote aspect that we're looking at from a deer standpoint, those coyotes are very mobile. They will move to places. They will sponge in. That doesn't mean that there won't be some fringe sponging from a coon or a possum or a skunk, but because of the size of those animals and what we know about their territories, they're not going to sponge and move as much as a coyote can jump from one property to the next in a heartbeat.
It's interesting. Seems to be we've been talking about this for about a couple weeks now, and that, migratory or borderline migratory status of these predator animals seems to be like a major
and
factor.
The game animal. A deer can adapt, it can move, it can shift. A grouse and a turkey aren't. They're not going to pick up and just move 50 miles.
Turkeys won't?
I mean, they'll move from property to property more than a grouse will, but they're still not going to move. Like, you're not going to see that gobbler move 5 miles.
I wonder why not. Like,
energy. Probably the energy balance.
Yeah, it's a lot of factors. I mean, there is some research, a radio collar that, I think 4 miles a hen one time, but it was such a fluke kind of thing. And I'm sure like Chamberlain and all those guys will, say, well, we got research coming out of our butt that they travel 10 miles.
I mean, there's always going to be anomalies around it, but ultimately the range of a turkey, again, there are nesting, like, growing up, I don't know what the saying was, but it was like a 21 to 28 days cycle where like maybe these birds are roosting in this grove of trees, 21 to 28 days later, they're in this grove of trees on the other farm, so there is some cycle of movement. I'm not a turkey expert, so I don't know why, but they're not going to pick up and move like giant steps like a deer will or a turkey will or a black bear will. Like, they just won't do those efforts, probably because of size. I have to believe it. It relates to the size of their body and the efforts that have to be put forward.
It's an interesting subject to just consider, like any of these species. I mean, especially a deer, for me, is like their perception of the earth, their surroundings, like if they're short on something, like how much will they tolerate lack of water, lack of, and I've seen like in small scales, especially deer, especially in those harsh winter months, February, March, we get a hard snow, just from trail camera data over a couple mile range. I've seen deer pick up and move, further than I think they would have normally to get into those areas where they can find that thermal cover in this case.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Eric. I mean, think about the number of clients that you visited on a deer standpoint, and like there may be areas in, whatever, Virginia or Pennsylvania, or that's timber oriented in that, in the fall, like those deer have a fairly big range, but it's not like huge. Now I'll go out to Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas. That deer within an hour period covers multiple miles because he's just walking across big open country.
Yeah. Yeah. It needs attention. The wild turkeys have jumped on the same road. They're actually walking down the same road as a rough grouse. And, last year you heard some, attention to it, like on social media. But this year, you really heard a lot of people like, hey, what's going on? People are starting to wake up. But again, and I said this to somebody the other day, it's like, watch. As soon as turkey season's over in most of the country, the call to arms will stop.
Oh, it's gone.
It's gone.
100%.
That Casey Shootman, and I'm being biased, but what he's doing and what he's going to be producing, that's a conservationist. That's what everybody needs to do, but not everybody can do that because of family time and stuff like that. Sure. But if you can't do it, you need to be advocating for it. If you're on social media, at least talk about it. Keep the conversation going for those that might listen and might actually go out there and get permission to trap this time of year. But again, it's like in Ohio, call it coincidence, but as soon as, the QDM turkey populations was just blowing up. I mean, you went out there and called, and they did exactly what they were supposed to: gobble on the roost, come down, and just run to your decoys, and you shot them. Now you're deer hunting turkeys, but the popularity of baiting, QDM philosophy, it just started the more baiting, the more this. I'm not saying baiting is bad. I have no research that it could be totally wrong, but you can't argue the fact that the two are together somehow. I don't know. I don't want to hate mail going, baiting, but no, it's just.
Well, I mean, they
connect somehow.
There's some hidden benefits to this, and we've had this conversation. First of all, I'll if I'm in Kentucky and Ohio, especially during the fall, there's a corn power or something out in front of one of my trail cameras. So I'm not going to say that I'm not the baiting guy, because I do it. That said, we've talked about Ohio in particular, in that I think it is one rule change away from being as good as the state of Iowa in producing bucks, and it's by eliminating feeding stations, not because that's killing mature bucks, but it's killing all of the giant potential bucks at 1, 2, and 3 years of age, especially. You remove that rule from the state of Ohio. Number one, maybe it benefits turkeys, but from a deer hunting standpoint, you instantaneously are going to recruit more of those better quality deer into older age classes, and it could be what puts that state over the edge. And I know now we're talking about trophy deer hunting and stuff, and people can bitch about it, but listen, if you want big bucks, you got to get them to older age classes, make them harder to kill.
Well, I agree. If I think baiting has a major impact on the movement of it's having a big impact.
Vulnerability of young deer for sure.
Yeah, a lot of 2 and 3 year olds are getting killed over, and older bucks. Killed that buck over corn pile right there.
Yep.
Dude, people aren't going to stop baiting though.
That's the thing, Jared. That's the thing. If you stood up, let's just say today, research came out, said corn is the reason why the turkeys are dying off.
Yeah, you can make a rule. You could say, great, baiting's illegal. I'm telling you, Eric, in Ohio, at least in the part where I hunt, eastern central Ohio, if you asked me to give you an honest guess, I would bet 95% of people are hunting over bait.
Yeah. But let me ask you this, Jared, to piggyback on that. Okay. Let's just say hypothetically, this is what's going on. Jared, you have a decision to make. You could either continue baiting, which is going to be the demise of the turkey, or to help head that direction at least. Let's not be too dramatic. Let's just say it's killing the turkeys.
Yeah.
It's not good. What would you do? I mean, honestly, are you going to stop, knowing that you're contributing to that? You have to make who wins, the deer or turkey? That's the situation.
I think the biggest issue that is faced by people who I think there's a large demographic of people that would be on my side, which is to say, I would love to ban baiting. I would be willing to give up that advantage that we have. The roadblock is knowing that the neighbors won't.
Yeah. You should see it from the air. Yeah. You should see it from the air. All the moultrie feeders and bait stations and stuff.
Oh, I'm sure it's crazy, man.
Oh, dude. Well, we walk a lot of properties, man, and I'm telling you, every single one has a feeder and a ladder stand on the line.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
Yeah, and it is it goes back to the big challenge for most agencies, and we've talked to the Pennsylvania Game Commission several times, and I completely understand why they do it the way they do. But one of the biggest limiting factors in this state, as well as many states, is the amount of enforcement agents that they have, right? And so if you go and ban something like baiting that is currently legal, how morally maybe 25% of us say, yep, I'm going to be the one, if even if my neighbor doesn't do it, I'm going to be the one that does it because it's going to help turkey succeed or get, deer.
Say that again. Even if your neighbor doesn't stop, you would stop?
Because it's banned. It is against the law.
Here's what I would predict. If it's made illegal, you'd go from 95% to 70%. Maybe
well, but this is where I'm saying you have to enforce it. The law is no
How
good
are you
unless
going to
you
enforce something like that.
Warden walks on and finds you and takes all your
Walks
stuff.
onto 95% of the properties.
That's
in
what I'm
Ohio?
saying. They don't have enough people to do it.
It's not possible.
Well, that you got to remember the air, the flying type stuff.
I'd
Those
love
things
to see
stick
it.
out.
It would make an example. If you walked on, if you banned it, we did it in Pennsylvania. Like I found they killed a deer on the property I hunt in the mountain. There's no cornfields within 100 miles, right? They opened the deer up. He's full of corn, right? And we know where these deer are disappearing to. So we called in and said, hey, I don't know, right? You have permission to walk our property. The neighbor said, you have permission to walk our property and just walk this whole edge. And guess what? The third property who didn't authorize permission had the bait, had the feeders and stuff, and they busted them. And they took everything that guy had that was related to the hunting side of things.
Hey, two things.
It's going to set an example eventually. The neighbor who probably was baiting as well said, well, shit, I better clean my stuff up because I'm next.
Yeah. But so two things. Maybe. I think that, and I don't know if it's possible, but if a group of individuals or an organization could organize like a movement that essentially made it cool to hunt without corn, that would be a way more probably effective campaign for getting people on board with wanting to be a part of that movement. But number two, another major thing that I think you're going up against, I've talked to quite a few of them here recently, co-ops that are selling corn to sportsmen. Dude, that's a
big business,
big part of their income, especially as agriculture is declining.
It's giant.
They're very reliant. A guy that I put some pull tabs in the other day told me that more than half of their business is trophy rocks and corn.
And that's in a state that technically you can't bait in.
Yeah, that's PA. That's Butler County.
Yeah, it's the commerce that is created from this. I know in
$10
Ohio,
a bag, by the way. Now they buy it for $8. They're selling it for like $9.5.
Nice. What was it?
They're buying it for $8.
No, it's corn. Shell corn.
Oh,
yeah.
Go to Lowe's. Lowe's has a special.
Is it deer corn though?
All the same.
Yeah. Well, it's just funny.
I mean, I
think that at Lowe's it's Mexican corn.
But listen, that is the downfall. Like you mentioned an organization, and I'm not here to call them out or anything, right? But QDMA is no longer, right? It doesn't exist anymore, right? It's the NDA, which has taken, frankly, more of a lobbyist position. Mm-hmm. And so,
and to the uneducated deer, I'll put myself in that group. I don't know what the NDA does.
Lobbyist, state and federal issues, chronic wasting disease, Sunday hunting, things like that they get behind. It's all lobbying, legislation, political issues. Okay. That doesn't mean that they don't do anything conservation, because obviously Kip Adams and Matt Ross and these guys are still doing stuff, but they've taken more of the lobbyist position to get behind bills that make sense for the hunter, which is needed. Not saying it's not. That said, who is the conservation organization for deer in the country? There isn't one.
Is it not NDA?
No.
And what? Wait. So, what's your question again? What's the
who? Ducks Unlimited, right? Delta Waterfowl.
Oh, well, kind of what I was getting at earlier is what? Not that it's not necessary, but it doesn't seem as important as one for your less adaptable species, like a turkey or a grouse. Like what I'm saying is the deer seem to be surviving fine. All we need is to not allow, double arrow crossbolts and rifle seasons that are a month long, and they'll be fine.
But you have those.
Exactly. So I would say that's more important. We need to focus on restricting that.
Yeah.
And the states, and Eric, the states, here's the problem, especially our state is going to be all in favor of that.
It's opportunity.
What's his name?
Opportunity.
Brian Burns is the director of our game commission here, is going to look at that double bolt crossbow and say, hunters are going to love that. Send her through.
Because they want hunter numbers.
Send her through.
Yeah, NDA, it's like you were saying, like we were discussing the organizations out there who's representing and know the jobs that they're doing. But like when you scaled it down with the NDA, conservation wise, you're only as good as your leader. I'm a firm believer in leadership. Okay. You're only as good as your leader. Why did the Romans have the soldiers build roads? Because when they didn't, they started just doing crazy stuff. They got to keep people busy.
Is that why I'm paying $5 a gallon for gas too? Because we're only as good as our leader.
Because of the Romans.
But when it comes to organizations, when you have no leadership and no information, why was the QDMA a powerhouse? Because they were just constantly the PR campaign, people were gravitating toward it, and then you take it away.
Well, and
now look what's happening.
And
same thing with.
I was super critical of QDMA, and they knew that. In that, I as a Northeastern guy felt like I was in a Southern old white guys club when I would go to a convention, and I thought they had all the potential in the world. They literally could set up, but there was a reason that they continued to smash their head off of a 50,000 member ceiling in a sport that had 10 million active whitetail deer hunters.
Yes,
is because it was isolated to money.
Yeah. Oh, and the same thing goes as like the NWTF. I'll never be a member of NWTF. And that's so unfortunate because they just, I was at a local level, of course, but I'm throwing a blanket on the whole thing, is that I was like, we need to talk predation. They're like, no, it's habitat. We need to put more money in habitat. It's like, stop. I'm not giving you another dime. Now, this year at the NWTF convention, I did go because I was working with the Management Advantage, working their booth. And they did have some seminars on trapping, but it was just, there was nothing.
I mean,
other than that, it was dead.
One of the key phrases,
pounding on people.
Yeah, one of the key phrases is, quote, save the habitat. NWTF, save the habitat.
Yeah, and you're looking for leadership. You're looking for someone, an organization. It's what's our dues going for? What are you doing?
Well,
I
think
want action.
That's where, and no knock against them, I think that's where you start to see them, because they're trying to appeal to a bigger mass, they start to lose focus. All of a sudden, there's an NWTF entire shooting complex for youth shooting sports and stuff in South Carolina. That's awesome. What does skeet shooting have to do with turkey hunting? Nothing. Nothing at all. I'm not saying that it's not important to our youth, and I'm not saying that somebody shouldn't undertake that mission, but the mission of your organization is to continue to preserve and conserve the national wild turkey.
Yeah.
What does that have to do directly? Indirectly, you can make plenty of arguments that says that it is hand in hand, but in terms of direct efforts, that's a lot of money going to something that I don't think is a direct effort of what your mission statement is.
Well, look at the NWTF. That's the livelihood and populations of the wild turkey is based on your existence. It takes a person, a conservationist like Casey Shootman, to prove a point. Where is NWTF? Now, they might be doing things behind the scenes that we're all unaware of, and they might be kicking some butt. And I hope they are, and I hope I can eat crow later. And this is not an attack on them. I'm just getting a little too passionate about what the topic is. But it's like, where is your PR machine? If the sportsmen think, and everybody's starting to agree that it is predation, it is nesting predators, where is your research? If it is, prove it. If it's not, like, guys, it's not. Where is the stuff at to say, no, it is this? You're not doing, there's nothing. Now, I might be missing it. I might be completely wrong. Again, your leadership. Where is the leadership? We need people to, you understand what I'm saying about leadership? It's just like you need somebody there to.
Somebody has to blaze the trail.
You.
Yeah.
Well, dude, for sure. I mean, this is tied to our conversation about with just media, I guess, is what we were talking about, in terms of like, where do you watch
the influences of content that you're getting, and where is it, and who are they?
Right. For sure. I think these organizations have struggled, like many other manufacturers and content producers, to find a place to like reach, sportsmen or the general public, because things like the Outdoor Channel and Sportsman Channel have essentially like gone away. They've like evaporated. And while there are some new smaller like mediums, like so Jeremy and I spent an hour and a half the other day talking about like, dude, what do you watch anymore, or like where do you watch it? Which,
I mean, as a small recap, reading through the comments, I would say the vast majority of everybody is watching most of their content on YouTube.
Yeah,
that's where they're getting it from.
Which is unfortunate because I mean, we're all well aware of the restrictions that YouTube will slap on.
Well, and not even that, but from a hunting and or conservation side, how you want to do it, there are no reviews. There are no peer reviews of what ends up on YouTube, right? So Joe Schmo, who has a lot of money, can put a piece of content out there that is completely bullshit.
Which is fine.
But people will find it and watch it and absorb it. It's not fine, though, because
that's the problem.
We've educated,
go ahead, Jared.
we could have educated 100,000 people on what is completely wrong.
Yeah, but what are you going to censor it?
I think that there should be some filters on that.
I don't. I think
that's disinformation.
Yeah, you should be able to put whatever you want on there. But in contrast, so should somebody else. There should be, in my opinion,
and we do. That's why there's so much content.
I mean, you saw.
YouTube.
I know how you feel about Higgins, but you saw they pulled some of his podcasts down because he was talking about the election.
I know.
You see that?
I did. Yeah. And I mean it. I understand free speech and that the ability to put that stuff on there, but who is regulating misinformation in the community?
People, the general public, the consumer should be the one.
They don't know.
No,
people listening to this, I'm sorry. Most of you guys don't know. You don't know. You don't understand. That's why you're listening to this.
That's what's frustrating. Someone said, hey, go watch. I'm not going to say his name. I want to say his name so bad. But I don't want to start anything.
Yeah.
He's from Missouri. They said, hey, go watch his rant about turkeys.
Yeah.
The turkey population.
Yeah.
And I knew of it and I just didn't want to listen to it. But I the guy asked me to watch it. So I watched it, and he was just regurgitating information, saying, hey, there is a problem with turkey. We need to do something. We need to do something. You need to do something. But my kid, killed his 2 birds. I killed my birds, and my sister's aunt killed her bird. I mean, it was just everyone got their birds. And then he said, instead of putting money in a CWD, you should take that fund and put money in a bounty for coon. And that's when I turned it off. It's like, you have been nothing since your career started exploiting wildlife for personal gain.
Yeah.
You can't do one effing thing for wildlife. Do you need some incentive to go out and kill a coon?
Yep.
You exploited your whole adult career on exploiting wildlife, and you got to have some incentive to help something that you're exploiting.
Mm-hmm.
You're an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, because like, he is allowed to say this, and that's just my opinion. And if I ever meet this guy, we might get along like peas and carrots, but I will have to disagree with what he's saying.
Yeah.
But it's just, they are allowed, but the same amount of people. That's the thing with leadership. It goes back. You have the Roman soldiers running amok, putting information out there that might be wrong. That's why I was trying to tie everything together. I just
and look at, I know exactly what video you're talking about, and I read the comments, and there were thousands of people agreeing with him. We don't need CWD money. Bullshit. Yes, you do. You don't. The reason you say you don't need it is because you don't freaking understand it. You don't understand what the effects will be on white-tailed deer. You're not a biologist. You have no idea. So shut your mouth, right? And listen to what the experts need to do. You may not trust state agencies, and that's fine. You may not trust the government, and that's fine. But you are not an expert in that field, just like this guy is not an expert in that field. But now we have 100,000 people who have witnessed the video from a quote-unquote perceived expert and are absorbing and passing false information like cancer through the country.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? Who's going to vet that? Who's going to stop it? There is nobody.
There's nobody.
That's the problem with social. That's the problem with social media and YouTube, in my opinion, is that at least with Outdoor Channel, like, I didn't agree with most of the stuff on there, but there was a QC process of that content going through. And then because there was,
look where that led us. I mean,
well, yeah, I know. I understand
the problem with how you're approaching that is like, who do you trust to be the authority on what is accurate and what's wrong?
There's plenty of people to be.
Bottom line is that the stuff that you watch in a unicorn and rainbow world, That stuff should be entertainment. It should be educational, but more entertainment,
Sure.
I think,
but the leaders, again, it goes to leadership where, like state agencies, it's so unfortunate. You have so many good people that work for a state agency that wake up every day wanting to do good for wildlife. And it's the politics, it's just the red tape and everything else that restricts that. They are the leaders. They're the experts. Hopefully you understand what I'm meaning by this. They went to school. They're doing the research. They're doing true wildlife management every day, not just putting in a food plot and saying, hey, and labeling themselves a deer manager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're doing true wildlife management every day, the true definition of it. They are the experts. And it's unfortunate that they're not the ones going out there, putting information out, not getting in debates with people, because that's a loose situation.
Sure.
But every time there is a topic, they should have the freedom to say, no, this is it. So people turn back to state agencies,
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Stealth Cam.
Dude, where would we be without our cell cams?
I would definitely be divorced at this point.
Yeah, I hear that.
I mean, the fact is I spent more time checking cameras than I actually did hunting prior to cell cameras. Now, at least, my wife can enjoy me being in the comfort of my own home, buried in my phone, checking those pictures.
Yeah, 100%. And dude, when it comes to trail cameras and definitely cell cameras, reliability is, I think, the number one thing that we're looking for. Stealth Cam just has a long reputation of reliable cameras, and ultimately that is the most important thing to us. They have to work.
In terms of reliability, there's not a better camera on the market than Stealth Cam, whether you're talking about the Fusion X, the Reactor, or the DS4K Transmit. And most of them are under $200.
Stealthcam.com. Check them out.
So this goes back. We had it was just us, not last week. That was Marcus Slasher the week before. And we were talking about just like old school, hunting TV and stuff, right? Yeah. And content. And the thing was, is
inability to share mission with the public.
Yeah. And for a long time there, like back in the 90s and even early, probably more of the 90s, it was TNN, Sunday nights, Bill Jordan,
TNN.
Jackie Bushman. Like that was it.
That's
like
awesome.
that was all you kind of had. And like those were the hunting authority guys, right? Then obviously as the expansion of Outdoor
for better
Channel,
or worse, yeah,
for Outdoor Channel and Sportsman's Channel, that's when Lee and Tiffany came on and Michael Waddell and
again,
everything.
For better or worse.
Yep. And so, and there was, call it control chaos, right? Because now these people had more of a visible platform. And what they put out, and several of them have done great stuff, but what they've put out was taken as wildlife conservation Bible, I guess, would be the best way to say it. But and no knock to them, most of those
they
people
had the platform,
are not the authorities in it.
Yeah.
To your point, Eric, and I think some more than others, there's been exploitation of wildlife for them to make a living. And
it's the foundation of their business.
It's the foundation of the industry.
Industry, yeah.
And so no knock to that. I'm in the industry, like I get it, but from a standpoint of who are the people that are the authorities and what platforms they have, to your point, Eric, there are some great people in the agency format, and I've been knocking on this for 10 years. There's a very big disconnect between those people, whether it's agency, research, Marcus Lashley was just on last week, and then that information getting to the public, because these guys don't have the platform that, let's call it, the hunting celebrities have. And that's where I'm critical about the misinformation, because there are some people that put out great information or bring the right people in. There are other people who vet information out there that is cancerous to conservation and to the hunting community, and yet it's taken as the spoken word because they don't hear from anybody else. How many of us have watched something that it's like, oh yeah, shot this buck, he's 12 years old. No, bullshit. No, he's not. He's not 12. Oh, hey, shot this buck, he's 180 inches. No, he's not. 100% not a 180-inch deer.
That's so hard not to,
but we've all seen it, or you start talking about, for a long time there, right? In the food plot world, it was brassica toxicity. Don't plant brassicas. It'll poison your deer herd. Brassica toxicity. It was a big deal.
Who was saying that?
Grant.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I don't recall that.
Oh,
Well,
Dr. Kroll.
Well,
Dr. Kroll was on them.
Kroll came out with it first. Grant was the defense of it. Right?
Yes.
So Kroll came out with it. Dr. Deer.
That's why he does
James
the
Kroll.
soybeans.
That's why he does forage oats. Buck forage oats. And then Grant was really the brassica push with mossy oak and biologic. And so Grant was the counter to it of like, well, no, brassicas are great. Like, look what they do for New Zealand and red deer. And so those were the two opposites. And at that point, whether you like both or neither, or one or the other, both of those have a leg to stand on. They both have PhDs in wildlife. They've done research. One has very outlandish views in my point. The other one is probably more conservative in his viewpoints from a conservation standpoint, meaning Dr. Kroll will say things that I don't agree with as a wildlife biologist.
Dr. Deer, right?
Yep.
That is. Okay.
And Grant will say things that most of the time I do agree with.
Okay.
You know, but it's because my education and background is more similar to Grant's than it is Texas and Dr. Kroll. You know, but either way, I respect both of them.
Sure.
Because of who they are and what their positions are.
Well, yeah, dude. You know, people are wrong all the time.
Sure.
You know,
and it's opinions. That's this entire podcast, 76 episodes worth, are basically me and Jared sitting here saying, "Hey, what's your opinion?"
Yeah.
You know, and so none of us are 100% right, but where there is issues is when you've got people that frankly don't have any accolades that let me believe that they should tell or educate someone else on what is or what isn't right. And that is society as a whole.
I mean, yeah, that is society. Literally, as society is people telling people what's wrong and right.
I mean, think of the nutritional things you see on social media, like drink this, do this, drink this, you'll lose this weight. You'll do, like, are you a dietitian? No.
Sure.
But I lost weight doing it. Cool, man. Like,
yeah, but lots. I mean, just like, I don't know, potentially the brassica thing. Lots of people will, with credential, will endorse something like that for financial gain.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very complicated.
I mean, but that's politics too. I mean, the reason there is lobbying groups is because that's how they get the votes.
Sure.
It's monetary,
yeah,
or a promise for a promise type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I got on Facebook here, and it goes back to, again, not to beat a dead horse, leadership, where the state agencies, because their hands are tied politically, that they can't put out the information. So the next thing you look for as a sportsman should be the organizations. You know, let's get on social media, for example. I got on the official National Wild Turkey Federation group page.
Mm-hmm.
It has 21,000 members and some change. And I'm sitting there scrolling, and all it is a bunch of dead turkeys.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, okay. So if I'm not learning, like, oh, is there a problem? I don't know. Let's just pretend you're Joe Public. But then you listen to some guy from Missouri, or you listen to some person in Illinois or Iowa who does have a base, you know, he does have a brand, and he or she is spatting off about, you know, like, hey, this is the problem, you know, blah, blah, blah. So who are you going to for, again, leadership?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the problem. It's funny that there are people out there. I know Hunter Johnson. He's a social media friend of mine. Really great guy. Hunter. He's from Arkansas. Him and some others started a group page about the decrease in turkey. So they are addressing it. You know, they're talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you get on social media, a group page, NWTF, and it's like, it's just a bunch of dead turkeys.
Well,
you know, so who? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, we just went through not too long ago with Aaron and the hunting public and the turkey side, to where, frankly, they are getting blamed for the declining turkey population, saying that their videos are driving more people into state lands and public lands and killing more turkeys. And that's the decline. And I mean, to the point where it's like legitimate threats over it.
Well, dude, it's a very bizarre position.
It's crazy.
Like, for those guys and for, you know, content producers, because, like, inherently, I think hunters are a giant tool for conservation and surely one of the biggest advocates for it. And yet the industry is rewarding like almost the opposite of that. The exploitation of it. What?
Are they a tool for conservation? Like, do they realize that they're a tool for conservation?
Who's
the majority of hunters?
I think so.
I don't think so.
Why not?
I bet the 10 to 20% of hunters that spend a lot of money managing private property and enjoying it probably recognize it a little bit, but the vast majority of the hunting public, not like the specific hunting public, has no idea that their role in conservation is critical.
Really?
Yep. They just go out and shoot deer and turkeys.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people generally speaking are fairly short-sighted, so
they would never. I guarantee they wouldn't even the people, private landowners. Plenty of private landowners. We've met some. Just even they would not even think about doing anything to their property to enhance wildlife habitat. They're like, yeah, we hunted a little bit.
Well, even if it's as minimalist or whatever as is killing the animal, that in and of itself is a conservation tool.
But do they understand that it is?
I think that a majority of people least have heard that. I don't think.
Well, here.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Huh?
Yeah. Let's play devil's
advocate. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Yeah. Let's play. I look at it a different way. Is that people need to understand that it is a more complex issue than just predation, and again, that's where state agencies, organizations fail at getting the message out. It's not black and white here. There are so many factors going into a decrease in hunting opportunity for wild turkeys and other species. It's not black and white, and it is very complex. And those organizations, state agencies, they get hit with all the noise, and it's like your hands are tied, everything else. And it's like, there is that disconnect. They need to do a better job putting the information out. I don't want to come across that NWTF as a horrible organization. And more I thought about it while we were talking, it's like, that is very stupid and selfish of me. It makes no sense that I'm not a member of that. And I'm actually going to consider, joining the NWTF. It's like, why be, that's an idiot. That's being very childish.
Are you pledging that you're going to be a member?
I'm going to
just pledge $7 million to the NWTF.
I'm going to pledge $7 million.
Right today, I pledge $7 million.
I have a can of Grizzly that I will throw in with it. All right. So
the official
so it's
sponsor.
just like, no, it's just like, I mean, that makes no sense. I'm not going to be. No, they are a great organization, and we have to prop up what we have. We just need to be those that have access to them. We need to tell them, like, hey, you should maybe think about this. You should maybe think about this. This is what I'm hearing. Okay. Yep. Not an opinion. This is what I'm hearing. So again, it's like, it's not black and white. The gruff grouse are in the situation because of X, Y, and Z, not just X. The turkey, situation. The big thing is that it's finally getting talked about. It's like now the turkey decline is off the radar. People are starting to take pictures of their food plots. And here for too long, people are going to start taking pictures of them shooting their bows. And then after that, it's tree stand. And then after that, it's just, it's a cycle of things. And then next February, you'll start, the sheds. And then it comes spring, we'll be shooting turkeys. And then where's all the turkeys at? It starts all over again. But again, you'll see the difference between a conservationist and just a consumer. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't take it that way. Is that now it's not being talked about. Now is when it really does need to be talked about. That's the key thing. No matter, there's nobody to blame. Yeah. There's lots of things to blame and all. You can point here, point there, but it's multiple things. People should become a member of the NWTF. They should become a member of whatever to help support these people. Maybe they don't have, the Rough Grouse Society doesn't have enough people and funding to do the job that they really truly want to do. I hope that is the case. And it probably is the case. But as conservationists, that's what we get labeled at. We should take it upon ourselves. We shouldn't be, have some incentive to do anything other than do what's right. If we want this, we talk about our kids and our youth, man. I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, we're dealing with this now. Could you imagine let's just play a hypothetical here. Could you imagine, like my son's 19, that generation, what is it, Generation Z or something like that?
Yep.
Or whatever. How are they going to handle? Let's say it's put in their hands.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? And we're one can't argue that we are the most educated on wildlife management in the history of wildlife management.
Mm-hmm.
No one can argue that.
Most tools at our fingertips, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we and look what we're doing. I would say we're not failing, but we're not doing a good enough job. And what is that generation of upcoming sportsmen? How are they going to handle it?
Well, to be honest, I think one of the biggest fails from let's talk about a leadership standpoint is the missing group in the whitetail deer field. Because the fact is your most passionate management hunting largest organization would be a whitetail deer group, of which would have a trickle down effect on turkey success, on rough grouse success, woodcock success, down to pollinators. And because there's a disorganization at that group level, who's the leader? Who's the one saying, if we go in there and we reduce the basal area of this timber stand to X, it's not only going to increase and enhance your white oaks that you've left behind for better timber production in the future, but the amount of forbs and cover and everything else is going to benefit your deer herd. Who at a landscape level or national level is doing that?
Yeah. And that's
private landowners.
Yeah.
Very segmented and fragmented, though.
Sure.
And no voices, no platforms.
Yeah.
Who you are, but what's your platform to tell people?
Well, I mean, it's not me. I guess HUNTR Podcast would be like our platform, but more.
And Eric would have Drumming Log, and Jeff Sturgis would have Whitetail Habitat. Like they exist, but there's no single entity.
I don't
leader.
know for sure, but arguably, maybe more than ever before. Like, at one time, we're talking about it was Outdoor Channel, and like the whole industry existed around wanting to shoot a booner in Iowa, or dreaming that could happen on our place here or whatever. And it seems like while that stuff is kind of like faded away, or is not in the forefront of our view, what remains is these independent, in a lot of cases, YouTube channels, largely tailored to private land management.
And I think it's good. That information is way more prevalent than
maybe
it's ever been.
Less. Maybe because there were some.
No. I think it's more prevalent. What I think we're missing though is there has to be a group that organizes that correctly.
Well, that's the thing, Jeremy. I know Cody and I with the HUNTR Project, that is like the ultimate goal, is to be that liaison for everybody, to get organizations connected with this, get state agents connected. Yeah. And be that bridge. But financially, and just how do you start that? And then also something Cody and I talked about is that there should be like a convention of minds, meaning the industry, yourself, myself, Sturgis, Higgins, Land and Legacy, just the social media influencers of wildlife management and a little bit of deer management coming together at a convention and getting just like we need to start joining forces and educating ourselves. Like, hey, like we need to be pushing this. We need to be educating this. I mean, we all need to, instead of being competitors, which that's just the human behavior of it. Sure. We need to start. If they're not, we need to be. And that's what Cody and I talk about all the time. It's like the HUNTR Project should be bigger and better. And we have all these ideas, but it's trying to get it done. But there should be a convention of all the influencers getting involved. Like people are looking to you, looking to Land and Legacy, looking to whoever. We need to sit down and go, guys, gals, we need to do better. We need to start doing this. You need to start adding a little bit of this into your content, and show support for state agencies, show support to organizations, instead of just being me.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think it's not impossible to do. It's frankly, it's pretty easy. We all talk to each other. We just put us together. That said, I still think an overarching entity to help pave that and make that happen is what's missing. At one point in time, it was QDMA.
What's the objective? Like,
So very much like, a local waterfowl organization may have a minor impact in a local community, right? But you're going to need a DU to pave the national way.
To do what, though? I know it's kind of a specific
platform
question,
and message, deal with multiple state agencies, applying for grant money and funding, all of those things.
Is it mainly habitat that we're talking about?
I don't know. I think it's
put this way. Let's here's an example. Like when Cody and I did the rough grouse, save the rough grouse video that we did.
Yep.
The goal, the money that we were hoping to raise on that is to go to RGS, Rough Grouse Society, and go, what do you need? Is it a FECOM machine? What is it? What do you need to fulfill habitat situations, or do you need to be able to hire more biologists? What is it? We're going to go get that money for you. Rocky Mountain Elk, what do you need? QDMA or NDA, what do you need? So we can connect you. That would be the thing, Jared, is to connect, like what is to be the bridge, what do you need so maybe you can get out there. Maybe
it's different for different species. Like the rough grouse, I imagine, would say, we have an issue with habitat. We need money to invest in habitat projects.
Yes.
Yep. Whereas I don't know necessarily if that's the case. Like, so my question, and I'm just curious. Like, so if we had a deer organization like that, what would we hope that they'd be like? I mean, dude, if there was an organization for deer that would lobby for restrictions on some of these things, like these double crossbows that I think are cancerous.
Yeah.
Some baiting I would be for that. I would give money to that organization.
Well, and you need it.
I don't know if a majority of deer hunters would, though.
You need a nonprofit. I mean, because that's what a state agency is most likely to engage with. Sure. That's what they're looking for. And then, I think that it's a mission from a regionality, to a national standpoint, to work on agenda items that are of concern. And some of those may be directly from the public. Some of those might be in the opinion of a biologist or a state.
That's what I'm asking. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just saying, what do we want out of that?
Well, is
it more deer? Is it more hunters? Is it less hunters? Is it better habitat? Like, what? I don't know.
Well, maybe this will help answer that question, because that's a very good question. It's like the QDMA, they had this deer summit, first annual deer summit. It was in Missouri. I was fortunate enough to attend it. It was absolutely phenomenal because you had all these minds. Yeah. You had media, you had professionals, you had amateurs, everyone coming together, breaking out in groups, and everybody got together and mingled and talked about all this stuff. Yeah. The information, the knowledge, and like, now we know where we need to go, because you're talking to all these groups of people came together in one room to where, hey, in Pennsylvania, we need this. Because in the deer world, every state is completely different. In Ohio, it'd be hard pressed to say what is the problem. And I would say it would be CWD education. Pennsylvania, it might be XX. Kentucky, it's this. But again, it's having funding to get that to happen, so that way you can find out from those professionals and amateurs, and then they take that information and go, put it on their brand. It's a trickle down effect. Yeah. So that's what's kind of we should start this.
And we have stuff around there, right? I mean, we've mentioned with Craig Harper and Marcus Lashley, the Southeast Deer Study Group meeting, which is limited from a regional standpoint to focus on the southeastern states of the U.S. from a deer point. But the amount of, first of all, deer minds you have in the room, the amount of research that's coming out of there, that's literally mind-blowing, but then never gets to the public.
Yes.
It stops in the research area. It's never translated. It's never talked about. It's never pushed. It's a miss. And it's a miss that I've talked to those guys for decades about. We've gotten better with it. That's why you're seeing, Marcus has the University of Florida Deer Lab. Mississippi State's got the Deer Lab. Georgia's got the Deer Lab. Like, there is more efforts coming from those to get that information out there. But again, that's 12 or 14 states out of, a whitetail range of whatever, 42, 43.
Sure.
So,
I mean, is this connected at all to, and Eric, I'm sure you can answer this question, working for an agency? Like, is there no role, or what is the role of a state agency to be involved, either with an organization like this or to execute some of the objectives?
Well, I know there was state,
because we're paying them a lot of money, right, for licenses, and we're happy to do so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at that deer summit, there was a lot of, I think majority of the states were represented there. They're deer biologists.
Same with the deer study group. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they are there, this is what, they go there for research to learn, and then also to give, research. But again, like Jeremy said, the deer study group, it's so limited. And then you have, all those master's degree, and you have all those egos that you have to deal with and everything.
Hey, I have one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at you. You're a hot mess.
Well, so if that's the case, if different states are represented, it seems like that should be a direct correlation of, knowledge happening at these events to rules and regulations that are being applied at a state or local
And there
level.
usually is. Let's just, because it's Southeast, let's take the state of Mississippi. If there's research happening at Mississippi State University that is relevant to the deer population in the state of Mississippi, more than likely Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks is involved in that research, right? Hand in hand, because they're going to try to use that data to affect something that they do from a regulation standpoint or whatever it might be, knowledge base, management goals, etc.
Yeah.
So it is. The problem is unless you have a larger organization, it stops at the state borders.
Yeah.
Because Ohio
like
doesn't give a shit what's happening in Pennsylvania and vice versa.
Okay.
Well, look at the social media aspect of state agencies. They put out a topic, and then just because of Big Brother or just you're disgruntled about a state agency, it might be talking about deer to harvest, and then all the comments are just bombarding them of you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. They don't have the ability to call people you're an idiot. They'll either take the post down or they don't comment.
Mm-hmm.
And then not commenting makes them look bad, but they can't comment because of politics.
Mm-hmm.
They might do some fluff, but their hands are tied. They can only go so far. And that's where we need more of if they can't do it, somebody else needs to pick up the baton and put that information out. So then they can sit there and actually have, there's no sensible debate on social media, but you could actually debate, professionally
I like
stuff.
I like the idea of operating within a state. Like if the state of Ohio, maybe they do. If the state of Ohio has like a research division, somebody who's accumulating this, and maybe they're consulting with people out of states. I do think it's very different from state to, and even regions within states. The fear, of an organization like that is that if, you put too much stock in something like that, and then they, have a person in a leadership position that goes against what everybody else thinks or is whatever, same as like a big government. It's exactly the same. You know what I mean? It almost seems like...
what difference are you going to make on a 1,000-acre landowner in
I'm not saying 1,000.
state?
I'm saying a state by state.
Yeah, but who's going to represent that?
The state agency.
No, they don't. They don't care about your private land as much as you want them to.
No, I don't think they do. And
that's why they apply
guess,
one thing, which is harvest level, and then under that, it's up to you to make the decision.
Sure. Well, I guess whatever we're talking about, this organization, seems like it would benefit being at a, state level. As
I'm not
national.
saying that it wouldn't benefit to have state branches.
Yeah.
Of a level, but
to almost contrast the state agency.
Well, mainly because you don't want a national level policy to be not relevant. Like if we're talking about baiting, that's completely irrelevant to the state of Pennsylvania. We don't do it. It's outlawed. We haven't done it. So why is it such a big deal to me?
Because lots of people still do it.
You need education out there to make sure that those people that are cross that line to realize the pros and cons of what they're doing.
Sure, which it would fishtail into CWD management, which is relevant in my state.
Sure.
But I think if you were talking about, hey, we're thinking about why baiting's bad and we're going to get rid of it, well, it's not legal here anyways. Whether people do it or not, it's against the law. Sure, people drive drunk. It's against the law.
Right.
And so it's that's where a national organization.
Great point, dude. I think that's why earlier I said, man, if you could create a campaign that would promote, why hunting without corn, it's cool. Same principle. You know what I mean? Baiting might be illegal. 70% of people are still going to bait. They don't care.
And honestly, it was one of the fatal flaws, I thought. Again, I love those guys to death, but of QDMA, in that most of the things they put out was southern plantation-based stuff, which was completely irrelevant to my property and how I hunted and managed it. Didn't make any sense. You know, cool. You've got 10,000 acres and a plantation in South Carolina. How am I supposed to apply pine management to hardwoods in Pennsylvania?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this make-believe organization to be the liaison of it is like, you know, to grab the Michael Waddell, you know, grab him.
Which is what NWTF did.
Yeah, grab him and tell him the pros and cons, whether you're, you know, what direction we want to go, reference baiting. You know, people will listen.
Sure.
You know, why state agencies like Iowa, you know, I mean, state agencies should be grabbing not just Iowa, but like Lee and Tiffany, you know, pay him some coin,
Waddell just
do
say
a
something
campaign
about turkey? He just did something. I didn't watch it.
Yeah, talking about the turkey population and
stance?
things.
I think he said he's seeing more turkeys than ever before
in his area. And he, again, to the discussion we're having, he's hearing, though, from fans that turkey populations in other places are declining.
Is it?
Yeah. You know,
I literally didn't watch it.
But again, you know, Michael's a Georgia guy. You know, he hunts everywhere, but his home's in Georgia. And if you see more turkeys in Georgia, that's how he's going to think about the turkey population.
Sure.
Just like we will.
Yeah.
But I agree. To your point, Eric, I mean, it would be grabbing these public figures, which frankly is why.
Well, dude, I obviously don't disagree. If there's an organization that's going to advocate for any wildlife species, I'm for that.
That said, what you think is different than what Eric thinks is different than what I think. There will be no organization that ever pleases the three of us.
Sure.
At one time. Just won't happen.
Yeah.
Because of all of us having different opinions of what is right.
Right. So in that sense, I think we would all advocate for a little more ability to do it for ourselves.
Agree.
So,
but again,
so that has to be protected.
And I don't think it's necessarily as bad as, like, let's even put the organization slightly aside. It goes back to the information that is being consumed and that then affecting how the hunting population behaves and implements things. If it is consistently or, you know, widely incorrect on some channels that are being consumed, that is detrimental to the landscape level wildlife population. Meaning if somebody says, hey, you know, don't ever cut your timber, right? Because like that, you know, for whatever reason, it's gonna, you know, kill more fawns or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
That would dramatically have a landscape level effect negatively on not only the deer population, but on turkeys, on grouse, on everything else that depends on early successional habitat. And unfortunately, maybe not to that extreme, there are plenty of channels and plenty of people pushing or saying stuff like that out there. Just as much, and I'm not taking one side or the other, of the number of people who are adamant not to use glyphosate in planting situations anymore, or adamant not to till a plot because of water conservation, that it only should be no-till. If you are not no-tilling, you are literally killing the soil. Yeah. And I'm not saying that they're right or wrong. I'm just saying that there are very much different ends of the spectrum. If I'm a novice at certain things, which I am, farming being one of them, I don't know who the hell it'll listen to.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the case of censorship in general, though. I mean, dude, you have to be open to the possibility that they're right, you know, or that we're wrong about certain things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think they are. You know what I mean? We obviously believe what we believe.
But how do I know who in today's society, who do I believe?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. And so while I don't have an answer to that, I also feel like you can't censor the voices even if they're putting out wrong information, because...
And that's a slippery slope.
Not as slippery as making a decision of who can say what's right and what's wrong.
Sure, that's freedom of speech.
Here's the thing, and this is going to come off so stupid.
Well, you're wearing a Cleveland Indians hat.
Oh my God.
So go for it.
You got a little poop on your hat right there too. What is that? What is that
My Whitetail
there?
Properties logo.
Yeah,
Oh, that's the little poop there too.
yeah.
That's from earlier. Yeah.
Anyway, no, we need to, I'm just going to come out and rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, hit
we
it.
need to stop. We need to stop thinking about ourselves. I know this is not going to resonate with anybody. We need to stop thinking about ourselves and start thinking about wildlife.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of things that I was listening to you guys talk is that wildlife should always come first.
Mhm.
Okay. When it comes to management decisions, it's what is in their best interest. So we can debate the other stuff later, and it's just, it's like when Cody and I started the Deer HUNTR Project, and this falls on us and our messaging and stuff, but we reached out to every single person we can think of in the industry. We pitched like, this is what we want to do. We're going to talk conservation, etc. And every single person, the majority of them said, absolutely love this. But majority of it said it doesn't sell.
Mhm.
Conservation doesn't sell.
It's not
And
sexy.
then when we did the rough grouse video, we picked ourselves up, not a big deal. Okay, we're going to head in this direction. Again, it falls on Cody and I, and our messaging is that, sorry, the dog's barking. The rough grouse, we reached out to all the influencers, everybody that had a podcast, one person reached back to us to help the grouse. It's like, it doesn't sell, gentlemen.
Yeah. Well,
it doesn't sell.
That seems to be the role of like the true stance of like a conservationist is like you are like a servant to wildlife, and
Yes.
people are attracted to the idea, for example, of killing a giant buck, because that's cool, and it's sponsors pay for that, and it's but when it comes to not getting any glorification or being paid for doing the real work that actually benefits the wildlife, it doesn't sell. It's not as attractive of a.
Well, and see, that's where,
it's kind of like religion. I mean, I don't know, that's the connection I'm making.
No, Jared. No, it is. Look at me.
That's why people, Eric, are drawn to these religions where it's like, oh, well, I get this glorification in the afterlife or whatever, as opposed to, oh, well, I actually have to, take a hit or whatever that,
Well, it's just like the last time I was on, and then a little bit of this time. I have it's too much passion. I mean, Jared, I was you. Every time I see you, we talk. I see me in you because I was absolutely. I don't have the guns,
Sure.
but
you did. Well, let's just pretend you did.
No, it's just age. It's just, Can we put a long shirt on him? I'm sitting there. I feel inadequate about myself. Please,
I don't think.
But no, I was absolutely obsessed with deer. And then, when Cody and I started this stuff, it's like conservation, and I was judging Jared. I'm using you as an example.
Sure.
Not I was judging you at all.
Sure.
But I was like, why can't he see what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you couldn't have told me anything. Jared and others have to experience this transition on their own. All my job is not to come off as the freak, the religious, right wing when it comes to, religion, just to make you feel comfortable. And that's what I'm working on. It's like, I can't judge anybody for not going conservation, because I was them, I wouldn't have listened to anybody. Oh, that's not macho. That's not man. Butterflies, pollinators. Sorry, that's not me. But now I'd rather deal with a butterfly than kill a white-tailed deer, because it's just where I'm at in my life. I can't judge anybody, but we need to start people of, Jared's generation. If he would just do a little, I'm just, again, using you as an example.
Feel free.
Yeah. Just if he would transition sooner,
mm-hmm.
because he is an influencer,
mm-hmm.
Transition sooner to like, maybe the people that follow him would go, okay, if it's Jared's okay, then it's okay for me. But you can't sit there and throw stones in glass houses when everybody moves at a different pace. We gotta just, like Cody and I, we were talking about, how do we judge our successes? It's a video that's going to be coming out, soon. It's like we judge our success by, that thing laying on your table,
Yep.
it's a harvest.
Yep.
But when you do true conservation, oh my gosh, it's like when you walk into a clear cut, you're seeing spiders on up to deer browse. That's success, because everything is utilizing the stuff.
Yeah.
That's success. That's how we should measure. We're not as depressed. We're not hurting our relationships, our family relationships and strain. All this stuff, it's a trickle down effect.
I think, like for me personally, and I imagine some other people are in this boat, it's not as, it's not like an unwillingness to like, because I sense your passion, and I'm a passionate guy too. And so I'm like, we connect on in that sense. And I think it's awesome. For me, it almost seems like more difficult to grasp one or multiple objectives, because it's like, I'll sit here and say, I want to get involved in a conservation. I'm all for, even this organization that we're talking about. The question that's like keeps me, and I imagine some other people, from being, here's a check or I'm all in, is like, what do we want?
Well,
what are we trying to do?
That's what I was going to say to your point, Eric. When you and Cody are looking at the deer hunter project, and like what was the response on like a rough grouse video, I think that's why a foundation is critical, because people may look at things and say, well, these guys are just trying to look at making a buck, right? And you're not, but the thought process is there the same. Whereas like the mindset around a NGO or something like that is, if I give them money, I know it's going to a good cause. Now, that said, I question those very much to say, well, where is it going? What is it going to? To your point, Eric,
100%.
What do you need?
For good reason, too.
Yeah.
Go ahead, it's you mentioned also a little bit ago, like Jared has his opinion, I have my opinion, you have your opinion. That's why maybe this foundation wouldn't work. To me, that's awesome, because that is diversity.
Yeah.
That's bringing different mindset. And what's here is awesome. And I strongly believe this, to bring a little religion in this, is that, there's a reason why Jeremy went on this path. There's a reason why you guys are sitting behind a microphone. It's a stage in life to make you, God is putting you in a position for X reason. You both are so well spoken. You choose your words. I mean, there's a reason for this. There's a reason why Cody and I met to do the Deer Hunter Project. And hopefully, I mean, I'm in a position now, professionally, like I'm getting ready to retire, hopefully in like 6 years with the state. I'm I got Drum and Log Wildlife Management and Deer Hunter Project. It's like everything that I met, every person that I met, every failure, everything has led to hopefully that next step, like we're talking about. Like there's a reason why everything is happening. And maybe all of us get together and get this done, instead of being the hypocrites going, hey, we should. Maybe we need to sit down and think about, like, we can. We were
just talking about that this morning.
That's the other hard part about politics, is that's the freaking worst job in the world. Who wants to go out and be the person that's like,
we've talked about it, at least.
That's why you end up with people in positions like we have.
See, that's the thing. We like Chuck Sykes, he started the Management Advantage. Okay. Yep. And he's a professional biologist, he kicked ass, but everything that he did, all the failures, all the successes led him to be the head, the director of Alabama Game and Fish.
Yep.
There is he is, I wouldn't have told you, like, Chuck, there's no way, it's a political thing. There's no way you're going to be able to do it. He kicks ass out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, he is the man. And it's like, we're like, well, who wants to deal with politics? I love politics. You put me in a room, I just live and breathe it, because your ability to talk to people and choose words, that is what's going to lead. And we're at the time period where no is not an answer. Like I was dealing with Rough Grouse Society, talking to them a couple of years ago. It's like, maybe the problem is like there's people in the middle that are slowing the process down. Like, hey, how about we start a forestry logging rating system, like click on Ohio. Here is certified loggers that represent the RGS mentality and their BMP, best management practices. And they have to do certain things to achieve that goal. That way, when someone gets on Rough Grouse Society, they look at Ohio and they want to choose a qualified logger.
Yep.
And so they said, well, one person said, well, then you have the Ohio Forestry Commission, you have ODNR Forestry, that they that's the problem. If you're not going to do it, get the hell out of the way. We're at the crossroad where no more.
Yeah.
No more.
Well, and I think that is a viable piece of that bigger organization is, and you and I just went through it from a forestry side, is like, who the hell do I trust?
Yes.
Who's qualified? Who do I trust? This is what I want. I know what I want. I know what I need. Now,
yes.
who the hell do I hire to do it?
Yes.
I had a forester in Greene County, Pennsylvania, quote me $200 an acre for an appraisal.
Of timber.
That's awesome.
I was like, cool. So you
stuff.
want 20 grand for 100 acres? Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. And I mean, but that's it. Again, I know that there are resources out there, right? Ohio's got them. I've been looking at it. My farm, Pennsylvania has them. But like, again, just like a peer review on a product, I need somebody that I can trust in to say, hey, hire that guy because he will do the right job and you'll get your money's worth out of it.
A majority of that trust is coming, and their business is coming from word of mouth. You know what I mean? Yes, Jed Coldwell's a friend of mine in Ohio, Eastern Central Ohio.
And Jed's the one who's been referring me to my guys in Southern Ohio.
95% of his business is a landowner says, hey, Jed did a great job for me. I'm happy with the result. You know, this looks good. You know, and so there.
But if you knew Jed, if you didn't know Jed and you were in Jed's territory, you would miss out on not hiring Jed.
Right.
Because he's phenomenal at what he does.
Well,
and he's a good person and he knows what he wants. But who is saying hire Jed in that area? Nobody. None of the organizations that probably
the organizations are not, but
and that's where I'm looking as the unknowing.
Well, that's the thing.
Person.
Yeah, I mean, that would, if they like RGS.
Yep.
If they would take that scenario and then promote it, so that way that people would drive like, oh, I need a logger. Well, you should automatically, in my opinion, logging. I want to do rough grouse management. It should be instantly.
Yeah.
I'm going to RGS. Well, they should have something and have that
100%.
Deer management. You know, it should be NDA or blah.
Yeah.
It should be boom. And then you go through their, you know, like you or Jared, we would all have to qualify, not a popularity contest, but, you know, it's just, instead of just going on YouTube, like my clients lately, they just got on YouTube. They're hiring from YouTube.
Yeah.
That's like, I was going to update my website. It's like, why?
Yeah. They're just watching YouTube.
You're watching YouTube. And if you're not putting yourself out there, which I'm not, my business is going low. I mean, it's not good.
I mean, my Pennsylvania place is a good example of like what to do. Like I went in and did some cuts myself. I've planted some conifers. Like I'm trying to potentially have grouse revitalized on that property. The side benefit and my true focus is I want better deer bedding there. But if I could have picked up the phone or got on the internet and said, okay, this company says this person, I would have called them and said, hey man, I got 28 acres. The timber's not really worth shit, but this is what I want. What would you do? And if somebody was telling me that these people do a good job at that, I'd be like, yeah, go have at it. Versus, okay, I'm going to do a little bit this year with what time I have and probably make a small dab.
Does that not exist at all? I mean, the way I got connected with Jed initially was through the
NRCS guy.
It was one of those, the DNR or what I called and just told them what I was trying to do. And they're like, cool, you want to talk to Jed. He's a private forestry consultant in your area. And then it just happened that, you know, Jed is experienced with landowners who want to grow big deer and also harvest timber someday. And so it worked out.
But I mean, I think like some of the forestry databases and stuff have them, but it's literally a listing. Yep, this guy covers your area. But you know, I'll go on Google review and I'll be like, great, he's got one review, and that was 3 years ago. Like and that's me judging that guy. But who else is going to tell me that he does a good job?
Sure.
I can ask for references.
Why did you call? What organization did you contact to get to Jed? I mean, what was like? Hey,
I think it was the DNR because you were getting your
guy's name was P. I think it's NRCS.
Was it the NRCS guy?
Yeah.
But why did you call them? I mean, what led you to call them?
Because I wanted to do TSI and I heard about TSI on a Midwest Whitetail YouTube video. So I called my local state department and said, "Hey, who's the forester in my area that can help me with this project?" And they connected me with Jed.
Yep.
See, that just proves right there that how easy that it could be.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I think that there are resources. I think people with a little bit of legwork can find some things out. But sure, yeah, if it was more accessible, that would be better.
Yeah. Or some sort of, and again, authority of trust. That's why people go and look at Amazon reviews or Google My Business reviews or whatever. Is like they want to see what other people like them had in terms of an experience. That doesn't exist anywhere. Or if it is, it's completely fragmented across the board. Yeah. Like if I called Eric up to say, "Hey, Eric, I'm thinking about having you consult. Can you give me a couple references?" I expect Eric to provide me with a few references of past clients that I could call up and say, "Hey, was it worth having Stretch out there?"
Yeah.
Well, that's the funny thing is that, we're basing, clients are hiring based on likes and clicks. And stuff. That's scary. It really is, because this Jed fellow, he doesn't have clicks and likes and stuff, and he's the man. Let's just say he is.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
That is
Jed
the
is
problem.
the one that you should have on there because it's wildlife first. He's not trying to exploit himself to get that like. And then let's talk about like reviews. I mean, am I going to give you a person that just thinks that I'm a complete idiot?
No.
I shouldn't have the amount of property. I'm going to give you the best client that I have that I know that will sit there and
same thing with real estate. One of the big things that we want out of a real estate contact when the transaction is done is a review from our seller. And if we brought the buyer as well to say, "Hey, Jared was, or Jeremy was, or Eric was a great person to work with in this transaction. They were knowledgeable." And when people see that, they're going to think, great. Now, if you ask me for references, I'm going to give them to you. But guess what? They're going to be the top 3 or 4 references I've got in my book, not the bottom 3 or 4.
Yeah, and that's why it's like the logging with the RGS. There's certain guidelines that would have to be met. There should be, instead of it tries to get rid of the popularity contest.
Dude, it seems like, unfortunately, like human beings just find a way to screw things up, and so I'm. As much as I agree, and I would love to have an authority that promotes these reviews of people and stuff, it's like, so with our business, we deal with like Yelp, who's supposed to be the authority on like an unbiased, it's a terrible company. You know what I mean? They're a terrible company. They're extremely liberal. They're promoting all the, all the stuff you'd want to see, black owned, gay owned, all fine things, but they're promoting it over just good business.
Yeah.
And I mean, dude, that and just my experience on this earth up until this point, I've lost a lot of faith in any organization's ability to do that unbiasedly for a long period of time.
Well, I mean, not poke the bear or make a big deal about it, but it's the 26th. If anybody hasn't been living under a rock, like we just had a terrible tragedy in Texas this week, of which the gunman posted on social media prior to doing the act, and yet that same platform is worried about censoring my hunting picture with my kids, and yet can't have some technology to notify authorities of a dangerous threat like that. Bullshit.
So apparently I'm living under a rock. There was a shooting?
Massive schools, elementary kids, 19 of them.
Wow.
He shot his grandmother before.
Yep, and he posted.
It was a kid?
18-year-old kid, dropped out of high school.
Wow.
According to authorities, no red flags, yet they interviewed multiple people that knew him, and there were plenty of red flags, just not in the law enforcement database.
And what happened? He posted something on social media?
So he posted on social media, Facebook, that he was going to kill his grandma. He was going to shoot his grandma. Okay? A little bit later, posted again, "I just shot my grandma." A little bit later, posted, "I'm going to go shoot this elementary school up." And then he went and did it.
And so what are you... Yeah, I mean, well, dude.
Talking about censorship, I get censored on that platform for things that I post that are perfectly normal. My kids with a dead deer or whatever.
And it's not an excuse, but I mean, dude, the amount of activity happening on these social media platforms, like
You're a $1 trillion company, though, with the most advanced technology in the world, and you can't flag something like that? Yeah. But you're going to lobby for gun reform.
Sure. Yeah, I obviously don't agree with it, but...
And I say that mainly because we're living in a society, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, and you're probably listening to this on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, our world is worse off because of social media.
Yeah, I agree.
It has destroyed the society, and we're all culprits in the participation, whether you have it or not. You say, "Oh, I deleted my Facebook." You're cool. Like, you're listening to this in Spotify or watching YouTube. Like, the community aspect of what social media has become and the reach that it has destroyed this world as we know it. We talked about years ago, if there was a school shooting, right? Maybe we heard it on national news. Maybe we read it in the newspaper. But like, for the last, 2 days now, it is all I've heard. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be extremely important, but to the point where, like, I'm now personally looking at starting a foundation to try to do something about that issue that's coming up. And it's because it's all I hear about. It's all I see. And I have young kids that are that age group that I look at, it was mainly fourth graders who were shot. Carter's in fourth grade. I look at my 10-year-old and say, you've got to be shitting me. Somebody walks in with an AR-15 and shoots all of these kids his age in his classroom. What? And doesn't do it just because that's what they wanted to do. They do it for attention, thus posting it on social media. Social media is about attention. To Eric's point, Jed has no likes. Jed has no followers, right? But the people that do, they're not doing it because, this is like, I'm just going to put it out there for you. No, they want the friggin' attention. We post this on YouTube so people pay attention to us.
Well, Jared, before I can tell that you want to comment. It's with everything going on in this world, the school shootings, now there'll be the gun legislation, high gas, Ukraine, possible war with China because of Taiwan. You got nuclear stuff. We got food shortages coming. We got what's our 401ks. We have so much stress in our life. And to talk about wildlife in times like this is very difficult because it takes the back seat. Wildlife will always take the back seat. But wildlife needs voices, not to to make sure, like, hey, I'm still here. And that's where you two come in. You guys do a fantastic, I'm not pandering. You guys do a very good job. You're well-spoken again. And wildlife needs the Deer Hunter Project to be arrogant. It needs the people. It's like, you guys, people that listen to your podcast and follow you, and what little people that follow us, wildlife management is not supposed to be stressful. We make it stressful. I mean, wildlife is something to avoid all that noise that we go through every single day when we're at the gas pump. That should be like our come home and go and get in our underwear type thing on a recliner. That's wildlife should be that, to enjoy and to do you. But again, and that's why it needs the messaging of, if we do grab a hold of like trying to help the turkeys, it's something, it's an escape. It's when you do management, when you open your world up to the spiders, the bugs, the stuff underneath your feet, it brings all that noise that we live in. It kind of makes it go away. You open your world. It's how we measure success, like I mentioned earlier. Wildlife should be nothing but doing what's right, and also our escape from life. That's like going watching a football game. It was awesome watching a football game. Then they brought politics in it, So then it's like, I can't even do that. And then we have wildlife. And so then you bring politics into wildlife. And it's like, we're more divided in wildlife management than the Republicans and Democrats. I mean, we were talking about baiting back and forth. We were talking about CWD. We're talking about how to do this and that. We're more divided, and the crossbow situation. Jared brought up the double bolted thing. We're divided. Wildlife, that's wildlife management. Hunting is you do you, within the law that the state agency allows. But you do you. But when you open your world to the whole biota of wildlife management and what it truly offers, it is truly the escape that you're looking for in your life. You can still harvest that big old stuff that's on your desk, but you're going to enjoy it even more. And I can't emphasize that enough. You will enjoy your harvest more when you allow wildlife management to be truly what it is. Somebody give me an amen.
Amen, man. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, that's that, you know?
Well, I mean, I guess in regards to Jed's business, just because we were talking about that, like, I mean, Jed has more than enough. I know he's turning away clients with no promotion on his social media and stuff. And I don't know the man's heart necessarily, but like, I think he's more than happy. You know what I mean? He's got his house, he's got his land that he owns, he has his business, and he doesn't go on social media. He's not a part of this bigger forestry management involvement initiative. And like, I think that's so valuable. You know what I mean? I think if there were more of that happening in all industries, you know, open it up, you know, when it starts to turn into a bigger thing, while inherently, you know, I see the power of a movement like that, it seems like they get off course, you know, or
that's where your misinformation and damaging effects come into play.
Happens so often that, yeah, I mean, I think I almost need to be careful of, or just acknowledge the fact that, hey, eventually,
I mean, we've all done it.
Going to go on the wrong course here.
We've all gone online to say, you know, wonder what this restaurant's like. Oh, it's got good reviews. You go there and you're like, wow, this was shit.
Yeah.
You know, but we went there because it had whatever reviews and people said this and that. Like,
and that'll happen.
It will happen.
Yeah,
100%.
You still have to experience life. You can't just base every decision you make on reviews. And
we live in a world of numbers, though. And to Eric's point, the clicks, the views, the what this society is now valuing as authoritative, what makes something an authority is the scary part.
Well, look at Jeremy. Look at, like, I was joking around with another consultant, you know, who's about my age. I'm 48, and we joke around that we peaked too soon. Jeremy, could you imagine you and I and a handful of others peaking in this climate?
Be crazy. Be crazy.
We would be rock and roll stars, because we were doing it for wildlife and wildlife only, and then putting money in our pocket later.
Yeah.
You know, we were not saying that's not happening now, but it's just, it's a different atmosphere.
Well, I mean, Jeff would be the first one to tell you, because he's not a bashful guy about it, is Jeff was one of those guys in that realm when we were, I would say, peaking, right? And Jeff was very much on the authorship, books, you know, and then he kept doing that, which frankly, I've got no problem saying I stopped doing it. I wasn't doing that shit anymore. It was taking too much time. I wasn't seeing the benefit. Jeff kept doing it.
Doing what? Authorship, writing
articles, just making content, doing things. And then all of a sudden, Jeff caught the wave that had basically bypassed me and Eric and some of us other consultants, to the point where now look at where Jeff's rise to numbers. And I'm not picking on him in terms of Jeff isn't legitimate because of his numbers. He is, but he did it because he continued to invest in the things that he believed eventually would work. Could I have said 10 years ago that Jeff Sturgis would have 200,000 plus YouTube followers and basically be turning away consulting work? I would not have said that. I would have said it would have been diversified out.
Yeah, it being a different atmosphere, it's like we were doing different things to get that. Like, I'm the guy to hire. I mean, I was doing 20 seminars a year, traveling all over the country. I almost got with my wife. My wife, a consultant's wife, is the most incredible person on this planet. I mean, to be frank, I mean, it affected my marriage where I almost got divorced several times because of it, because I had to work harder. You know, you had to put yourself out there to where we didn't have the social media. I mean, you were working harder than it is now. Yeah, I would say, and what have you. But it's a whole different thing, and it's just a different atmosphere.
Well, I think to your point, Eric, too, and not to Jeff's discredit, I don't know this to be the case for sure, but I don't think he was ever doing that solely to benefit the wildlife. I'm sure he knew inherently that those practices were benefiting wildlife, but ultimately it was so that he could be more successful as a hunter, and so that he could grow his private management business, so that those other people could also be successful. And so you're right, Eric. I think I don't know at this point, who is out there, and frankly, how they would like provide for their families and stuff, like where the funding would come from to solely be on the mission of advocating for wildlife.
Yeah, we're so disconnected with like true wildlife management, where everything is just like, a fad. Consultants are somewhat of a fad too. It's like when, Jeremy was peaking, I was peaking, pick somebody, Rand's Tom. I mean, all of us, Dave Edwards, etc.
Yeah.
And when you get old, you just completely like have complete brain farts. What's my name, Eric? Right?
Yeah.
I just forgot what I was trying to say.
Well, no, you're right, dude.
No,
I mean, but I mean, if you would have asked me 10 years ago when I was at this thing as well, it was probably more than that, 12 years, 13 years ago, if you had said, hey, if you keep making videos, not only will those end up being a huge benefit to your consulting business, but you could eventually make revenue from those, I would have said, yeah right, get bent. I'm going to go and do 20 seminars across the country instead because I know that's where I'm going to make my money. Meanwhile, if I would have redirected those efforts, I could have 200,000 followers now. I'm not saying I would, but.
Sure. And that's any industry. If I had done this, or if I had,
and that's where I give Jeff credit all the time, man, because I have emails from Jeff and I exchanging it 10 years ago of him working on website blogs and stuff, and me basically him and I talking about, hey, if you do this for SEO, if you do this, like I think things will happen, and like all of a sudden. There it goes. There it starts happening, and it's funny because then like I take an eye off of that and I come back. I'm like, holy shit. People know who Jeff was. Where, no offense to Jeff, 10, 15 years ago, it was probably a more isolated community, especially in Michigan and Wisconsin, that knew about Jeff Sturgis. Now, nationally.
I just kind of remember what I was going with that is that, you had all of us and then we were, I'm just generalizing, we're like replaced with another generation of new consultants because of social media. They were I want to just go get the job done and go home. I don't want to, I have Cody and everybody saying, you need to film it, phone it. And it's like, I just want to go home. I just want to do the job and go home. And now it's just like a shiny piece of foil in the creek and the raccoons just attracted to it. There's going to be a time and place where people like Lane and Legacy and all those guys, they're going to be replaced. There's going to be a new up and coming, who's going to replace the who's who now.
Yeah.
100%. So, but again, we need to keep remembering, like when you really, really wanted to know about like old field management, Craig Harper.
Yeah.
Just let it grow.
Myself. I mean, when it comes to native vegetation, who do you think of? Craig Harper. He's the old guy.
Yeah.
I mean, we still know stuff.
Well, but
when you're done playing, come to me.
In defense of that, Eric, yourself and Craig, I have seen less of in the last 5 years than I'm used to, and I think, and I don't necessarily know if it's because you guys are doing less than you used to 5 years ago. I think it's because there's just more stuff out there to sort through, and so somebody like that gets lost in translation because, well, I found these other things before that.
Yes.
So, anyways, listen, dude, we took up, we blew, there's the rabbit hole and we're out. I mean, a lot of stuff in that, if you listen to this podcast, I mean, take it all with, a grain of salt, and that this is a discussion. It's a debate. It's a discussion. It's a, discussion towards progress. So what come out of that? I don't have any answers. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that I dislike misrepresentation and misinformation out there. Again, I'm not for censorship per what we just talked about, but I don't like that misinformation and misrepresentation out there. I am all about opinions, but it has to be to the benefit of the greater public, whether that's wildlife or COVID or finances or government, whatever. And I don't see us ever getting out of this thing. We have now come down such a deep wormhole with the way social media and content and different platforms and different clicks are set up. How do you ever come out of it?
Dude, what's crazy is like it just seems like even with everything that's out, like all the research that's done and all the social media that we have to promote it seems like human beings know less than we ever have before.
At least less of what's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like there's more opinions, there's more research, there's more all of this stuff. And yet
to that point, there's too much noise. So again, I'm not for censorship, but we are now in a society where there is so much to consume. How do you fathom it?
Yeah, I completely agree
balance
with that. Completely. Well, frankly, dude, that's why it's the first time I hear about the school shooting.
Yeah.
You know, and not that we should turn our backs to stuff like that or you know, not pay attention, but I mean, dude, we're as individuals, like we're only capable of intaking so much before you're just completely overwhelmed with whether it's anxiety or stress or you just get.
I think great point. And like I've talked about this with people. I shut
it off. Yeah, I don't.
I mean, I've dealt with anxiety and stress for much of my adult life. You know, to the point of like it's a medical condition, and you know, and I acknowledge it. You know, and I work through it. That said, you know, I have to wonder if it's because, you know, think about 15, 20 years ago, like the amount of information that is around me at all times, every day. I mean, there's not a minute that goes by that this phone doesn't blow up or do something, whether it's a phone call, a text message, an email, work, etc. Like there is a threshold to what my mind probably can just handle. And I think I'm there.
And it's an impressive level.
It is.
It is. Well, I think Eric and I's is frankly much lower. I can't do it, man. Yeah. I don't watch any news, and I'm plenty stressed.
And I'm overloaded to the point where that I would 100% believe that had we not transitioned into complex phones and social media and stuff, that, you know, at 38 I would not have an anxiety issue.
Oh yeah.
But based on where we are,
saying is like whether it's we know less, we are worse off for sure.
Yeah.
And
we know it, and I'm not saying like, I mean, there are good things about this. The fact that I can go to Kentucky and be fishing on my boat and still answering emails and working, it's fantastic. But there's a lot of negatives to it.
Eric's gonna say, is it though?
Yeah, no, it's just to talk about this real quick is I'm open about it because I hope people realize maybe they look like, well, hey, Eric has it. It's okay to have it. Like I fight depression. I take medicine for it, and I have anxiety. 2:00 in the morning, I'm stressed out, can't sleep because I'm worried about a grouse. It's stupid. Like, what are you doing? And my wife, you know, she's like, you're 48. You're going to stroke out by 50 over a bird. Like, what are you doing? Wildlife's going to kill you. And it's like, I need to find that ground where it's like, I need to let things go and just,
it's hard. It's hard,
just
man.
Being you. It is. It's like, I don't stress about money. I don't stress because Lord has blessed me with many things. And I look around my house, gorgeous house, landscape, great. I work hard at all that. And I'm worried about wildlife. Like, what are you doing? You know, it's like you got too much passion. It's like you're trying to put all your energy into that and trying to save the world. And the world is, I don't know. That's why sometimes my I come off as you know, it comes off wrong because there's anger in my passion.
Sure, it's emotion.
I don't think it comes off wrong.
It's emotion.
Well, I think that's the internal struggle when I talk about, you know, you just call it politics in a general sense, but getting to a place of like an elected official who's advocating for a group of people, whether it's in wildlife or anything else, it's a hard decision to make when one route is, why don't I just stick, you know, be happy? Why don't I just, my wife and I have this piece of land, just going to hunt it.
Yeah, when's enough?
Or this other route would be, why don't I put myself out there for public shaming and, you know, the potential for all this stuff to maybe not ultimately ever accomplish anything.
Story of my life, bro.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it's like Jeremy and I had a conversation yesterday. It's like, I mean,
that's your leadership conversation coming back in here too.
Yeah. It's like with the HUNTR Project. It's like that, I get to be me, you know, I get to just, it's my escape.
Yeah.
You know, I get to do some cool stuff with Cody's, you know, conservation films, do these, you know, whether 10 people watch our wildlife management videos or not, we both of us, that's not why we're doing it. When you watch them, we're just laughing and we're having fun, and we pound diversity too much, and we talk about, you know, open one's mind, but it's that another person like Garth Brooks being Chris Gaines, it's just, I get to be this guy, and, but we all need to, like, Jared was saying, it's like, what do you do? Why can't you just enjoy your piece of property?
Mm-hmm.
And why do you feel like you have to go out there? It's like, I've been professionally managing wildlife for almost 30 years. Think about that. I mean, it's nuts. I've seen it all, when reference to state and reference, for the private side. And I'm to the point where it's like, I need to start thinking about like easing up, enjoying life. I missed a lot of stuff. It's just like a movie. You're going through photo albums and it's like, I don't remember my son right there.
Mm-hmm.
My wife said, you weren't around,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, okay, maybe hopefully he has a kid one day and that I can make it up for that, and that's sad to say,
but
it's the same thing. It's like, I want to go away, but at the same time, you still want to be legit. You still want to be, fed this, like, hey, you still know something, so.
The good news is it's not too late. If your son is still around or, whatever it is that we're saying, we wish, like, dude, you're 48, 39, I'm 29. Like, we've got plenty of time to still do this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. I lived through my kid and he's a piece of work. Oh yeah. We're like peas and carrots, man. It's great. But it took a lot to get there.
Yeah,
it's like, why am I missing a soccer game to go do a consult to?
Well, it's priorities, and
like, wow, man.
We can
you're trying to put money, food on the table, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, we can always live in retrospect on it. You just kind of have to go with your gut when you're doing it. So.
It's like therapy with you two.
Oh, dude, I know. Well, I mean, seriously, I like, it's not the first time. Like this shooting thing has kind of kicked it around before, and
that's terrible, man. That's
it's just awful. And to the point where, like, again, I've been blessed to be successful and enjoy my life and have a great family and everything. That said, like, there's a selfishness in a lot of my thoughts to where I'm like, man, like, if I faded off the earth tomorrow, like, what did I really leave behind? And that's, and if I reflect on that, frankly, I'm not saying that I haven't done anything to do that, but I haven't done enough to where I feel satisfied with what I would leave behind, and that's aside from like my kids and what I've instilled in them and family. I'm just simply impact of a greater nature. And, I think we all should think of that, whether it's, from a wildlife standpoint or just from a general life standpoint. I mean, think about it. Like, what would you leave behind if you walked out? Would people remember you?
Yeah, I mean, is it hunter? Is it this? Is it that? Jared, that question goes to what? I mean, you pass tomorrow. He was a what?
Yeah.
Jared,
I know, man.
You were what? Like myself, I hope, there was a time it's like, oh yeah, he was a hell of a hunter.
Yeah.
And then there was a time, oh, he was a hell of a wildlife manager. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, man, he gave his life for wildlife. That's what I want. I want.
Well, and that's a great. That. And I say that because I've again listened to the news and I'm having to hear, third hand basically, but families describe 10-year-olds, and it's like heartbreaking because it's like, what, like they didn't have a chance to leave a legacy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wild.
Yeah, and then you have the difficult questions on how to solve it. Nobody the
knows.
Answer is A.
Yep.
But everybody wants B, C, D, E, F,
no
G,
different than wildlife, though, man. I think it's a multitude of factors, and you can't isolate one of those factors to solve the problem, and
I mean, I had my dad yesterday, my father, who's, he's a very conservative minded person. And he was talking about what happened. And this is the last thing that I thought he would say. He's like, why do you need an AR?
Mm-hmm.
And I just looked at him because it's my right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to say that and have that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
You're going to be looked down as you insensitive prick. But no, man, you can't give it up.
No, and here's the thing.
The contrast is, what if everybody else there had an AR-15?
Correct.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, if you give it up, does it solve the issue? And the answer is no. In black and white, the answer is no. If it was yes, if giving up an AR-15, black and white, yes, would stop anything like what we just experienced in Texas from happening, I would gladly give mine up. But the answer is no.
I think most people would. I think it's It's knowing that can't ever possibly be the fact. There will be somebody breaking the law or that has the thing. Yeah.
Evil will always find a way to do evil. That's just how
there's been school shootings since 1853, I believe, is the year of the first school shooting.
Yeah, I mean you
cannot. Evil is all over this world, and we just choose to ignore it. You know that there is evil, and you can't like Adolf Hitler's of this world. You know, it's like it was just pure evilness.
Well, I'm working on something, Eric. It's irrelevant to this conversation. Well, it's relevant to this conversation, irrelevant to the wildlife conversation. At some point, I'll let you in on it. But it's a passion project of mine. It's something I've been thinking about, and you know, as a father to 2 elementary school kids and seeing what happened, like, you know, better late than never. But now's the time to work on something from a foundational standpoint and try to, you know, as much as possible prevent the factors that happened, you know, in Uvalde and have happened in other schools in the past. But yeah, I'm gonna work on something. Why the hell not, man? You only live once.
Oh, you got to keep busy.
You only live once. Yeah,
you got to keep busy and block out noise and try not to resent things like I resent, you know, Jared. He's 28
for having bigger biceps.
He's got the
flow.
He's got the
biceps.
flow.
He's got the
hair flow.
Yeah.
Wow. You know? Hey, under this hat here, Eric, it's coming back.
It's starting to fade pretty quick. Yeah, that's cool.
I'll give myself 2-3 years before we're taking a buzzer tour.
Oh yeah,
I enjoy it. Well, listen, dude, we appreciate you coming on this morning.
Oh, I love it. I appreciate you inviting me. I've always, and like you said, this is just a debate. Sometimes I say things that I don't actually mean. I just say it to see the reaction and to keep a conversation going. But you two, I wish the best for this podcast and what you guys are doing, because
you're not going away. You're not freaking dying on us, dude. You're coming back at some point.
No, this is great. No, it's like this, we need more of this.
It's just good to talk. I mean, this is our Deer Hunter project for Jared and I.
Yeah, exactly. Like you were saying,
we can be ourselves and let this rip and just walk away from the table and be like, cool, back to work,
dude. And I'm so proud of us for prioritizing it too. Like, we haven't missed a week.
76 weeks in a row.
That's incredible.
Which, dude, for Jeremy and I's schedule, that's borderline impossible.
Yeah, my wife will say that's the thing you've committed to the most in your life.
I know when Cody and I do these, like when we do podcasts, we have so much fun. And after every one of them that we do, we're like, why don't we do more of these?
It is. I will say it's a tough commitment just to make sure that we don't miss a week on it. But it at some point, again, these are the things that maybe 10 years from now I can look back on and say, wow, that was awesome. Yeah. You know, that was good.
Yeah. Good deal, guys.
So, okay, brother, we'll let you go and get back to work. Well, you're on your day off, so get back to your management plans.
You sure you don't want to talk another hour?
No. I don't want to. I've abandoned that a long time ago on the management plan side. So.
All right, man.
Good, dude. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you both. See you.
Rabbit holes for sure. I'm sure when we
you gotta appreciate passion, man, and Eric's definitely got it.
It is interesting. So you know, we joke about like peaking, but he's not wrong. Like, you know, that was probably in 2009, 10, 11, somewhere around there. So you're talking, you know, over a decade ago. Crazy to think. Well, and I was your age at that time, so I would have been 28 a decade ago. You know, and Eric would have been my age at that time. Mm-hmm. And so obviously Eric had been at it more than I had. I had just come out of my master's degree, you know, right then. I think I was 28 when I probably graduated with my master's. No, I would have been 26. You know, and so Eric was probably 36 at the time when I was coming out. And dude, it was hot to trot. And there was a handful of consultants across, you know, frankly, I didn't know who Don Higgins, well, I knew Don a little bit. I had no idea who Jeff Sturgis was at the time. Like, we met a couple years later. You know, but there was a handful of us in that consulting realm that were like, you know, competitors. We were fighting for those bigger clients and stuff. And, you know, I was a young guy. I had just come out of school. These guys had been at it for a little while and established themselves further. You know, but Eric's right. Like, we lived deer, you know, and I lived management too, but it was all to kill a big deer. You know, I mean, that's ultimately what it was. And so to see his transition now, talking about like full wildlife and conservation and, you know, pollinators and stuff is just, it's great. But it's just so funny to think of like what the world that he and I came from to this point. Yeah, it's different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think to manage or to live for like deer and deer alone is, you know, there is so much more out there, you know, it's different. It's not like you can necessarily, maybe you can, but you know, you may not choose to obsess over, you can probably only,
I obsess over deer still.
Yeah,
I still live in the bubble.
There's enough there to almost like build a lifestyle.
365, I live in deer and deer management world. Now, if I can do something that benefits turkey or grouse, awesome. But it's an indirect benefit to me trying to do something for deer.
Sure. Well, and what I was going to say about that is like to not open yourself up to also appreciate these other things for what they are, which I think is kind of what he's saying.
100%.
You know, you're shorting yourself. You know, like if I only care about deer, that's all I care. And so when I see a turkey, I'm like, I don't care. It's freaking turkey.
No.
Man, you'd miss out on.
Well, I mean, I've never elk hunted, but I've heard an elk bugle and it sends shivers down my spine type of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just because like it's same with the turkey. Like I do like turkey hunting. I don't love it like I like deer hunting, but like, you know, in the early morning that gobble sounds off and I'm like, oh yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
You know,
and dude, all the way down to like even the plants, the different types of environments that we get to just be in outdoors. Like when we go out to the Badlands, like dude, even if we don't see a deer, like that is a
busting through sage area. And I mean, you're just sitting in that.
I think there's wisdom in that, you know. And Eric's got some years on us. Just the fact that he's making a conscious decision to slow down, while he's still, I'm sure, passionate about deer. You know, to just be kind of like. Looking more for
the peripherals a little bit more.
Yeah
it's a crazy thing to think about because there is so much more to it. And you know, we and again, you know, 14 years ago, you know, I had a phone. Social media was, you know, Facebook was 3 years old at that time. You know, nobody ever heard of Instagram. You know, life was at a slower pace for sure, you know. And compared to today, like there's only so much that you can handle, you know, that you can take in and that you can absorb. And, you know, it kind of, it resonates with me when Erich talks about like flipping through and seeing like the kids do this. And it's like, cause I've been there, I've missed things that, you know, probably that was devil in the details. That was the blessing of COVID for me, is that COVID forced me to slow down. I had been running at 100 miles an hour and I missed things that were that I can't go back and get. And it forced me to slow down and take in the world that I had created. And because of that, I live in that world now. That's what I focus on. And there are things that I miss out from a business or revenue standpoint that I just am like, yeah, who cares? You know, and had COVID not happen, I could still be running at 100 miles an hour and missing things. You know, and so that's, you know, obviously it's affected people negatively a lot, you know, but I try to take in the positive of it is it forced me to slow down and probably change, you know, the way I was living life, I would say.
I'm trying to think through the same sequence. I think mine is almost gone the other way.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm almost at a faster pace.
Well, you're at the age you should be.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not, you know, I've been doing the entrepreneur thing for a decade plus now. You know, in fact, when I came out of school, I was right into it. You know, I never really worked for anyone. And, yeah, it's a weird thing to like force yourself to slow down and see this thing. And I'm glad I did. You know, that said, I'm still invigorated to continue to do things and grow businesses and be involved. I love that. That's my like weak energizer. You know, but.
Well,
yeah.
I think there's something in the minds of entrepreneurs and you know, just busybodies that, you know, we tell ourselves that if I don't see this through to fruition, or if I give up even a few hours to go and do something, whatever, in the outdoors or with my spouse, that it's gonna negatively affect, and you're gonna miss out on. You're not gonna achieve your goal there, and it shouldn't be an excuse to not work really hard. But I don't think
still be there.
That it's necessarily true.
No, it'll still be there. I mean, and you know, that's where when we talk about like the Bought a Farm stuff and people looking at, man, I really want to have a piece of ground that I could work, but it's like, I make an ordinary income. I've got an ordinary family. I've got an ordinary, like, I don't know how to do it. You can go at it hard for a couple years and you can make it happen, but don't think you have to continue to go at it hard and continue to do that stuff. Some people aren't wired for that. And frankly, there are plenty of people that I've seen, whether, look at some of the bigger figures out there in the entrepreneur space, whether it's a Dave Ramsey or a Gary Vaynerchuk or whoever, right? I would assume that most of those guys are moving so much that they're not enjoying life. They may think they're enjoying life because 100%. It's the entrepreneur thing that they love to do.
Well, dude, that's why, that Gary guy, I don't know how you feel about him now, but I know that you've looked up to him. Dude, I think that guy's miserable.
I agree.
Has to be.
Yeah.
I don't really follow
Ramsey
I like
Gary's stuff. I still like some of his mindset stuff, but the fact is that guy is working, 20 hours a day still. At what point are you satisfied, I guess? And I mean, he's built businesses that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. At what point are you satisfied with it?
Yeah.
And I've struggled with that to where it's like, how big do I want to make this? Or how successful should we do this? At what point are you just happy with what you have? And I will say that's probably one of the biggest things that most entrepreneurs wrestle with is that it's hard to ever satisfy that thirst.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and dude, that's why I think questions like we're asking Eric, a very passionate person, just like we both are, is that's great. It's good that you are ready to work. You're ready to give it all. You're passionate. But in that case and in our lives, you have to ask yourself, what is my objective? What am I trying to achieve with all these efforts? And because so many times I think they're misaligned. If you would ask me, and I worked for you for 7-8 years, I've been very clear about and maybe they've changed as I've gotten older, but I can remember at one point being, dude, my objective in life and in working for you, whatever it is I want to be able to hunt the way I want to hunt. I want to kill some big bucks, and I want to be able to spend time with my wife, And those have obviously evolved as, we're now our own business owners and you and I are partners in this, we have new things in the mix, but a lot of those objectives haven't changed. And so in terms of checking the way that I'm spending money, the way that I'm allocating my time, sometimes you got to check the reins and make sure that your objectives are still at the forefront.
We've talked about it. I'm sitting there sending you, not they're great, but I'm sending you pictures of hey, look at this buck, look at this. And you're you're dying to be in the woods.
Isn't it funny how our roles have almost flipped a little bit?
Yeah.
At one point I was like, dude, you got to slow down. Look at this deer picture. Check out this antler. Now it's a little bit. It's because of our stage of life.
It is. It's because of stage of life. But it is to the point where, how many times have I talked about it on this podcast? It's I'm going to go out and spray Ohio. I still haven't been there yet. And Emily to the point was hey, maybe instead of going to Kentucky this weekend, you should go to Ohio, and weather's not going to go up. But I need to commit to that stuff. I have to do it. And I'll regret it if I don't. But it's priority. There's not making any more time.
Well, one thing I think that affects it too, in a noble way, is dude, as I've gotten older, and I know that you're in this position too, is when I maybe initially had those objectives of I just want to hunt and spend time with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've got employees, and I've got people whose not necessarily their happiness, but their livelihoods stuff depend on my actions.
Yeah.
And so I allow my time to be consumed by just the awareness of that, or acting on behalf of other people more than myself. And while I think that's very noble, I think it's, that's important.
That's part of the anxiety.
You can't let the well run dry either. You still have to make sure that you are capable of delivering.
That's the part of the anxiety and stress that I was feeling in that 100-mile-an-hour lifestyle, was that I care for all of you guys as employees, and I feel responsible to make sure that you guys continue to have, livelihoods through a business, and so I would see myself doing things that ordinarily I probably wouldn't have done had it just been me and my family.
And that's good. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's good. And it's good to push yourself and have goals and continue to be engaged.
And partnerships are good with the right people too, man. Dude, our whitetail properties thing here, dude,
The guys have been telling me already. They're like, dude, I wish I had partners like you and Jared, because just the way that you guys can ebb and flow off each other and conquer and divide. And it's a huge benefit.
Well, and I know what my capacity is to work for myself. And it's not as much as my ability to work for myself and for you and for your family.
Yep.
And I sense that it's
same
reciprocated, and so
that's why it works.
That's why it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing. And I mean, I think
that's why marriages work.
100%.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, I was laughing when Eric was saying, about the consulting wives and stuff. Like Emily and I were consulting together. Like we had a business of which her and I did the work together. And yeah, it was stressful. Not that we didn't enjoy it, but both of us were sometimes gone in different places, and it was like, and starting to try to have a family and stuff. It was just insane. But yeah, man, it's a crazy thing. And again, I vent about the social and aspect stuff of it because I've lived before the social. College was while social was on the rise, and now we live in this world, and it's like, man, sometimes it's the what ifs we didn't have it, and maybe then HUNTR Podcast would not exist, and I enjoy this thoroughly, but also there are parts of just the speed at things are. I mean, you gave me advice probably a year ago, I would say 6 months, and I turned off like all my notifications because my phone was just, and I still get plenty of them, don't get me wrong, but my phone was just exploding. Like it would just sit here every 10 seconds. And I mean, whether you're looking at it or not, my brain is intaking that, and it can't handle it, to where now 90% of the things that are on my phone, including email and stuff, like there are no notifications. I'll go in and check them when I get a chance to check them. And it's dramatically brought down that anxiety and stress.
Yeah.
Because there is only so much you can. It's great that everything is here at my fingertips, but there's only so much stuff your brain can process.
That's an exact application of what I was saying earlier about the thing still being there when you're ready to give it attention.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Shutting off the notifications doesn't mean you're not doing that work. It just means that you're prioritizing your ability to make decisions about when it's right to check that stuff. Than allowing it to say now.
And if you're a multitasker, it's a demise because you end up never finishing something because you'll be working on this, then you jump to this, then you do this, and then do this, and then that one never got done.
100%.
So, anyways, long podcast
Good
today.
Stuff, man.
76. We appreciate Erich Stretch Long from Drumming Log Wildlife coming on.
And now I know what a drumming log is. So that's
there you go.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to make one on my property when a grouse ever shows up again. Maybe.
There you go.
So, anyways, we will catch you all next week.
Later.
Take me